Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description. Deadly Drinking Pirate by Darren. Ace was wondering about that sake he stole from those pirates before allowing his little brother Luffy drink it when they became brothers. And now Luffy has gained a new ability, one that defies the laws of devil fruits and yet makes him even stronger than before. Watch this drunk-proof pirate become the king of them all. Mature Luffy duel. Devil fruit. Luffy/Harim, I don't own anything, adios.
For the longest time, Frankie was silent, yet everyone waited patiently. I want, the cyborg whispered until he spoke up, to build a ship to rival the pirate kings and see it reach the end of the world. Can I do it? Luffy was silent this time and instead faced his crew, and the cyborg did the same. We can't answer that. Zoro spoke first before Sanji went next. You will have to decide that, and to top it off. But you don't have to do it alone. Not with his fellow dreamers. Kuro spoke up, completely different from when he first met the crew back in the East Blue. And Frankie took this in strife. Fine. You wanted this stupid dreamer in your gang, then you got one. I am Frankie the shipwright. What's broken? I will fix it. You got a problem with that? That was loud enough to echo throughout the island, but nobody minded. It was actually nice to see a man that was considered to be boss of scum and a public menace actually get his mojo back. Now that we have that sorted out, let's see the new ship. Your masterpiece if you prefer, Frankie. Luffy spoke up and his crew got excited all over again. This time, Frankie walked up right in front of the white veil where Iceberg had been waiting the whole time. With a hand from each on the veil, they pulled with their might to reveal the ship underneath. It truly was a sight to behold. The size was that of a cargo ship combined with a battleship. It was about a mile long and a half a mile wide. The hull was white and looked sturdy and had what appeared to be a large hatch that was big enough for a caravel to fit in. There were over 50 smaller hatches that looked to conceal cannons. At the rear were a pair of dome-shaped cabins and what appears to be a garden laid out outside. There was also a large contraption that resembled the mouth of a cannon. Finally, the figurehead was that of a large lion with its entire mane taking on the shape of a pinwheel, too. And I call this ship, the Grand King's Brew, AH. The cry of a woman in blissful relaxation was heard across the sea and from a certain, large new ship with the familiar Jolly Roger wearing a straw hat and armed with a katana and rapier. This is so great, and for once I don't mind spending over $1 billion in one place for all this. Nami was dressed like she would at a beach, but with the sun shining and the waves have settled down, she felt like it. She then felt something cool pressed against her cheek. Nami didn't need to look to know what it was or who was holding it. You read my mind, Lu-kun. It was a metal can. Not that of a beer can, but one of them soft drinks sold back in Water 7. Whatever, pretty kitty. Luffy spoke with a chuckle and a playful tone. Just don't overdo it because a sunburn seriously hurts. While his girlfriend enjoyed the cool drink handed over to her, the captain put up another wooden, collapsible chair with an umbrella in the middle. Lastly, he pulled out a copy of the newspaper and passed over a copy of the magazine that Nami found herself subscribing to. Just something that she was willing to spend on since it was popular with young girls and grown women. Elsewhere, the rest of the crew were enjoying their new ship in their own way. Zoro, Jin and Frank were in a room built and filled with exercise equipment for working out and staying in shape. Robin, Nijiko, Kaya and Isa were in a large library, stored with various books of various contents. Half of them were information books while the other half were novels. Chopper was relaxing in his very own doctor's office and patient room, stocked with all the latest supplies used by modern doctors. Usopp was with Frankie in a storeroom that also acted as a space for inventing as a hobby. Sanji was in the kitchen that also was part of the dining room, complete with an open bar that can work as a bartender's station. Grace and Alvida and the Otter were in a room lined with art supplies, working on some basic pictures with a few more detailed projects. And these were only a few of the various rooms and other features of the new ship. There were the 3 large and tall ship masts, each with giant sails to catch the wind. Double decks with 50 cannons and a large one up front. There was also a place for a tangerine grove that was able to survive paradise that also had a garden space. The ship also had over a dozen bedrooms, bathrooms, and even a large open-aired hot bathroom. There was even a room made to write maps for Nami, an opening at the back of the ship's bottom for Omi to sleep in at night, and of course a special storeroom that housed winery and giant barrels of cola. Why cola? Frankie somehow found a way to convert cola into a clean energy source to power a few devices on the new ship. It does beats burning coal, and let's just say that Frankie has something in mind when the mind dies on the sails. Finally, the 2 new recruits along with Frankie, Nero and T-Bone, were adjusting to being pirates now. Both have thought hard on what to do after the events at Eni's lobby and realized that the world government and the Navy will no doubt try to kill them off to try and keep their operations around Robin a secret. Being pirates made no difference to them. Nero was taken as both a fighter and a marksman by Luffy, but this time the former will be taken in by the crew for training this time. The senior members from the East Blue, except Nami, started to break Nero in for how he could only use 4 of the 6 Rokushiki, 6 powers, techniques and yet could only do the basics of those. Call it a crash course to help him catch up with the rest of the crew. Not to mention Usopp getting a boost of confidence when he was in charge of sharpening Nero's own marksmanship with his twin pistols. Then again, Frank pitched in as a fellow gunman. T-Bone, on the other hand, was right under Luffy's wing as a die-hard warrior for the Navy. It took a while but at least, the creep-looking swordsman stopped tearing off his own clothes to help others. Also, Luffy learned a few things about T-Bone's signature swordsman style of using a broadsword to make perfect right-angled slashes that can even travel distances as energy attacks. T-Bone was still the master of the style while Luffy simply wanted to learn how to make his attacks stiff but sturdy and even move around his opponents should his own fly off. Now that they were pirates, no longer working for the world government, both of these new recruits had gotten a new look of sorts. Nero discarded his flashy attire as the junior CP9 member and wore something more casual. He now prefers long khakis, a t-shirt with a hoodie as well with hiking boots and fingerless gloves. T-Bone still wanted to save something from his old uniform, to still appear like a knight. While discarding the Navy uniform and the potbelly armor piece, T-Bone wore something more of a long shirt and long pants with a vest, each lined with real armor covers. Hard to believe that this may be called paradise to the locals but we still called it hell back in the East Blue. All but you, of course Lu-kun. Nami spoke again and sent a flirty eye wink to her boyfriend from her magazine. This got her a quick kiss on the lips from the captain who didn't even leave his chair. Nami swooned and looked back to her magazine, not minding that the kiss made her lose feeling in her legs somehow. And that was what they did for most of their free time away from all the action and explosions. Pirates still need to relax and just watch the clouds go by. But their next adventure came with an interesting discovery in the sea. XXXXX. Tell me again, why did you bring this on my ship? Luffy sternly and in a brutally calm tone while stressing the word pointing at the barrel on the deck. It happened more near dinner time and Usopp decided to get some air with some fishing alongside Chopper and Isa. They wanted to see if they could get a big one that Sanji will cook up. Instead, they caught this barrel that is sealed up good with red tape. We didn't mean anything from it, Luffy. Usopp put up his hands to try and cool down the tension building at this a while ago that while he and the doctor are considered to be Luffy's little brothers while Isa to be the little sister, the captain shows no favorites. We just thought it would be treasure or even some kind of brew that fell overboard or… Luffy raised his hand to halt and so Usopp did. The captain then turned to the cyborg inspecting the barrel. Frankie. What do you think? The shipwright turned to Luffy and nodded. I knew it. Waterproof tape, tar between the boards. I knew that this didn't just fall off a ship. It was in the sea on purpose. That couldn't be good and that was between the crew for the time being. That was until Luffy saw something on that barrel made his expression rather unreadable. Moria. This whisper was still heard by the crew but before anyone could respond, Luffy sliced the barrel at the top which released a massive red flare that nearly blinded those who witnessed it. We took the bait and we might as well get the trap over with. Make sure that nothing on the ship gets damaged or stolen. We will be entering the triangle. Luffy spoke up and walked off the deck without another word. All the crew could do is notice that the clear weather and bright sky turned foggy and dark. XXXXX. The crew realized that something important had slipped their minds back in Water 7. About a grand line phenomenon that is dangerous, even to seasonal sailors of paradise. It was called the Florian Triangle, where a thick fog is said to be littered with ghost ships and monsters that live on them. Now, the Straw Hats are in the triangle. Why couldn't we go around it? Isa asked her guardian with a tone mixed of fear and curiosity. Because it has been confirmed that the Florian Triangle and its dense fog completely cover their portion of paradise. The only thing surrounding them both is the calm belt. Luffy answered with an unwavering eye straight ahead. And I don't care how confident you feel about it, we are going on course and I can promise you that we will get out of the fog and back on our way. Then what was that barrel for anyways? I know that even in paradise, something like that couldn't have summoned the fog to us. Kuro spoke up, grounded but still with a sharp mind. Unless… that barrel is part of a scheme to lure in other pirate ships and keep them under control. They will see the barrel and believe it will be treasure, food or drinks. Instead they would have alerted themselves close to his turf. Luffy answered and while most of them were not connecting the dots, Robin lost all color and even Frankie got a bit pale. Gecko Moria. Frankie shouted out that spooked almost everyone in hearing range. I have heard of him. He is a member of the Shichibuki, 7 royal warlords. And it is said that he takes in ships to his own and nobody ever hears back from them. Ever. Now more of the pirates started to shiver while Luffy slowly grew a frown. Luffy? What is it? Nami asked with genuine concern, squeezing her boyfriend's hand with her own while Robin did the same. It is that Moria, Luffy spoke up in the tone of a man who was let down in a major way. Was actually my idol during my training with Shanks. Now that surprised everyone and they forgot about the fog for a bit. You actually looked up to a Shichibuki. I thought that you couldn't stand them. Zoro acted scandalized, cheated and such. But something at the back of his head told him to hear out something else about this. Not as a Shichibuki, but as a powerful pirate. The captain responded and took in a deep breath. In his prime, Moria matched blows with Kaido himself. Luffy said it, like confessing to a really embarrassing secret. Too bad that it fell a bit flat. Who's Kaido? Most of the Straw Hats asked, either at a plain or a puzzled tone. Luffy can do a lot of things, but he couldn't get himself to dignify that with an answer. Just this. Once this is all over with, it is time for a crash course on the new world. The pirate captain said and gently released his arms from his lovers to take off his hat and comb his hair. Right now, watch the starboard side. Soon the sounds of screams were heard when a ship about as large as the Grand King's brew appeared, one that was dreadful and scary as hell. A ghost ship like the rumors stated. However, while the crew were either scared out of their wits or on guard for an enemy attack, Luffy was only interested in this enigma that bothering him. His haki is picking up a signature meaning that there was someone on the ship, but it was also reading to be both dead yet still moving about. Before he could even ask himself, the answer came when what appeared to be a human skeleton staring at them on the ghost ship. And he was wearing clothes with an afro. XXXXX. Oh my. The skeleton spoke somehow, being nothing but bones and clothing. My apologizes if I scared you folks something bad. I haven't seen a living soul in years. I must say that this is one good day indeed. By this time, most of them were on guard along with a full-grown woman. A reindeer wearing a hat and a little girl hiding behind the captain. We will be the judge of that, so what's your name and how are you a talking skeleton? Luffy was scared by only a few things in the world and they each make a talking skeleton look like a harmless stuffed animal. Oh, the skeleton moaned in a dramatic tone, as if he was once an opera singer. It has been so long that someone asked what my name was, I nearly forgotten it. How cruel this life can be. Despite having no eyes, the skeleton still saw that no one was amused by any of this. He still made the gesture of clearing his throat, still somehow making the same sound. My name is Dead Bones Brook. When I had flesh on my bones, I ate an Akuma no Mi, devil fruit. An Akuma no Mi caused this? Kuro spoke, in pure curiosity. He knew that Akuma no Mi were real, but he hadn't seen one before Luffy and still they make his head spin. Now he has met a user that claims his fruit had turned him into a skeleton. Yes, the Yomi Yomi no Mi, revive fruit. It is an Akuma no Mi that allows the user to be able to live again after dying once. Brook answered, still leaning on the railing. 50 years to this day, my crew and I were journeying the Grand Line, but we were attacked by a very powerful enemy that left us beaten, bloody and poisoned with our doctor already killed off. One by one, we fell until there was just me and Brook started to shake, and so did his voice. Until he felt something covering his dead, bony hand. Something warm and comforting. Let's get you off the ship and give you a good meal. You can tell us the rest after eating, our treat. Luffy spoke in a tone that was a combo of a demand and an offer somehow. Brook couldn't refuse and his crew were slowly not getting scared of Brook the more they hear. Instead, they got a new sense of disgust. And that was because of Brook's terrible table manners. Once Sanji served a dish of rice and fish. The grains were scattered everywhere. He tried to swallow an entire beef steak and stick a whole salad on a fork. Brook got a drink and let half of it drizzle down his bones for all to see. To put the cherry on top, the skeleton let out a grossly loud burp and a revolting fart at the same. That is the best food I had in years. I thank you, younglings, greatly. Brook shouted out and started to use a toothpick to get some of the food bits that he got on his face. His skull face to be precise. I thank you all, from the bottom of my heart. Oh wait, I don't have one. Yo ho ho ho. Forget just one. Every pirate felt several sweat drops roll down their heads. Then Brook turned to face Nami, getting a bit unnerved but not when the skeleton asked, young lady, may I see her? Brook was silenced by a certain hand that stretched all the way over the table, from one end to the other. You may not and never will ask my girlfriend of that, ever. Understand? Luffy spoke like someone tried to hit on Nami right in front of him and actually tried to assault her. The NP appreciation with a hug on the neck and a kiss to the cheek. Robin blushed a little at how she knew the real reason Nami is so quick to show affection. She had a taste of it after Luffy defended her from Aokiji a second time. Now tell us, how did you lose your shadow? Luffy asked next, and before his crew members will ask what he meant, the captain pointed to Brook's boots. Once everyone got a good look, they nearly screamed all over again to see that no shadow can be seen where they can see theirs just fine. Brook just stayed calmly and everyone waited with bated breath before the skeleton finally answered. I did not lose my shadow when I lost my life. My shadow was stolen. By a pirate with the power to steal shadows. Brook answered. As I said earlier that my ship was attacked, the rudder had been jammed and I had been adrift in the same old circle for years. Yet I still found myself on another ship, the world's largest ship fashioned out of an island from the West Blue, or so I heard. However, the captain of that ship had taken my shadow. Moria. Luffy intervened and Brook shivered yet nodded. Aside from how he mashed Kaido at one time, the only reason they made Moria a member of the Shichibuki is because of the Kage no Mi, Shadow fruit. It is considered to be one of the strongest Akuma no Mi ever since it does more than steal shadows. It gives the user complete control over their own shadow to fight for them and even take the stolen shadows, and enhance themselves. Luffy said those last words with a tone of disappointment, like he disapproved of that fact yet did not deny it. At that, not even the likes of Chopper or Isa wanted to respond to it. One last question. Have you found where your shadow is now? Brook stopped, placed his cup down and shivered like a sudden breeze came through. I do. It's in the body of a samurai. I tried to best him for my shadow but he nearly killed me again and, in my shame, I fled. I found my ship again and realized that despite it was going in circles, I was at my safest there. Ironic, isn't it? Nobody said a word and Brook was shaking so bad that he couldn't even handle his teacup. But I vowed to get stronger and win back my shadow from that samurai. And his name is— Brook looked up and screamed like a banshee, starting the whole crew. Ghost. Everyone turned to face what Brook was spooked about and something did appear right through the ceiling. It did indeed look like a ghost but one from a silly kid's cartoon with its simple, white humanoid body and goofy face on. Nevertheless, Brook retreated into a corner, as if he tried to pass through it to escape. But the ghost just giggled and vanished. While half of the crew were on edge and the other half were spooked too. Luffy had a scowl on his face that threatened to peel it off his head. That means we are here. Luffy calmly spoke and just walked through the door to the deck. His crew flooded out to see that in the fog, was something truly out of a horror movie. It was more like something in a vampire flick, with a giant castle, an eerie forest and even a large graveyard spotted. Luffy stayed on the second floor, right outside the dining hall, watching his crew try to get a better look. Brook still tried to blend into the corner of the hall, shaking like a leaf in the wind. That was when the captain's instincts made his hairs stick up something terrible. Nobody moved. Luffy's voice echoed for a brief moment and he got his message across while he jumped back down. We have another intruder. One with the utmost vile intentions. Can you feel it? The captain said in a grim tone. His gaze that of a predator that is aware of a trespasser and is hunting down with a vengeance. His crew tapped into their haki and felt their very bodies screaming in terror to the vile presence on board. Even Chopper and Asia felt it, crying yet lips sealed. The ice was broken when Robin gasped, her eyes widened. Something had grasped her in a vice grip. She couldn't see what it was but Robin could hear and feel the panting of a beast hot under the collar, breathing on her hide. The intruder had made its move on her and before she could cry out for help, the sound of a blade meeting flesh was heard. Luffy moved at his fastest yet, using his katana Reime Atami, Dawn Pain, to cut at the wrists and neck of whoever dared attempt to defile Robin. At the next split second, Usopp grasped Kaya, Frank grasped Carol, Najiko grasped Isa and both Chopper and Nami moved towards Luffy's backside. Everyone else had their stances open and any weapons presented. The dead body, staining the deck, was a hideous abomination. It resembled a standard man but the head had face of a lion that still had the human expression of frozen fright. I don't know who he is, what he is, nor do I care. He is a nobody with a soul even more disgusting than his face. He dared trespass on my ship but he walked on the chopping block when he dared to prey on Robin. Now he is nothing but fish food. Luffy spoke with most contempt and hate he could muster. His entire crew agreed and while the men moved to the body pieces, heavier than it looked, and threw it all overboard, Luffy was attending to his second girlfriend. Nami and the other girls asked to help Robin instead for a bit but Luffy spoke something in her ear and Robin nodded before walking back to the kitchen. Hopefully a cup of her favorite coffee can help a little. Luffy waited until his crew finished cleaning the crime scene. Loot this ship. Whatever enemies you find, you can have them. Moria is mine. Luffy turned, jumped onto the nose of his ship and spoke these last words, and welcome to the thriller bark. XXXXX. It was a rather quiet walk through the monstrous ship. Pasting the trees, following the paved dirt path, heading towards the largest tower that also served at the ship's mast. All Luffy could hear was the wind in the branches and his sandals on the ground. It was starting to get a bit annoying rather than creepy. The captain even wished for something to happen before he screams in boredom. Negative, negative. It was faint but Luffy's ears picked up that chant and stopped in his tracks. Soon the chanting started to pick up and get louder all around. But Luffy just stood there with his hands still in his pockets. He knew exactly what those are and rather than waste his time trying to find the source, he was waiting of it to find him. Or rather, they found him. Negative, negative. It was a bundle of ghosts a lot like the one that scared Brook witless on the Grand King's brew. And Luffy could only feel his forehead itch, listening to them say the same word over and over with no end in sight. I get it, I get it. Things are giving me a headache. Luffy spoke in annoyance and it seemed that the ghosts didn't care. I mean it. Not that off. I have places to be and. Luffy stopped in his speech and jumped out of the way of yet another ghost. There was this thing about them that made his instincts tell him to avoid their contact. Before Luffy could say another word, the rest of the ghosts started to charge at him like a pack of wild bulls. Luffy moved with the grace of a male dancer and like a champion at dodgeball, which he is unaware of. Smile. If he needed to go left, he went left. If he needed to go right, he moved to the right. If he needed to jump, he leapt. If he needed to duck, he hit the dirt and got back up. However, he was not having any fun. All this just annoyed Luffy even more, and finally, enough! Luffy shouted and meet one of the ghosts with an open palm, only for something to emerge and actually deflected the ghost away at an angle. This actually shocked the other ghosts, and they had stopped their chanting. I guess you don't get this a lot. Now can you? Luffy tried to get his point across until the sound of something heavy hitting the ground had got his attention. Turning around, the captain didn't know what to think of this thing. It definitely didn't give off the same repulsive aura as the intruder on his ship. It had a bat-like gape that is also his wings that enable him flight, and legs capable of suspending him upside down. It had sharp fangs and claws, a long stitched nose, pointed ears, and his eyes, if not sunken, seemed to have strange tattoos encircling them. Above its right eye is the number 21. Luffy also noticed that it was muttering and mumbling something like it wishes it was something smaller like a maggot or a worm and it wants to die like one. This was incredibly interesting to Luffy. That same ghost, which was sent flying away from Luffy, was still near the bat-looking thing, and before it could even think of trying again, a hand stretched and grasped it by the throat. This action scared both it and the other ghosts, like this never happened before. You're not going anywhere, Luffy said, with his arm a good several meters longer. I have seen that you can crush a person's spirit and will to fight, which interests me. You just go tell your creator that I have plans after Moria to see her. Luffy may have added a bit of intimidation to get his point across and got the ghosts afraid of him for a change. Enough that the one in his hand vanished completely as well as the others. Now to get back on track. A brief while later, and here it is, Luffy said out loud, not caring that there was no one else around to respond. All he cared was that he could sense Moria inside, by the soft sounds coming from atop. He was dozing away like a giant ugly baby. Let's get this over with. Taking out both blades, Luffy positioned them parallel to opposite arms. The Tsukoruku Kato, base core cut. By the name of the technique, Luffy sliced a large portion right out of the tower. This left the base undisturbed while the rest of the tower came falling onto its back. This naturally shook the island a bit, sending panic to whoever saw it or heard the tower fall. Luffy wasn't bothered by any of it since he already briefed his crew on what he was planning to do while they each helped themselves to the zombies. "WHO did this to my castle. WHO dares awake me from my slumber." Luffy smirked to hear that the sleeping giant had gotten up, or in their case, out onto the downed tower. This man looked nothing like a human and appeared like a fellow monster. Yet this was the same pirate that is the master of this island, Gecko Moria. Moria is an abnormally large person with very distinct, devil-like features. He has two horns protruding from the sides of his forehead and stitches running vertically from the top of his face and down his neck, which is rather long and thick in comparison to his body. His ears and teeth are both pointed, while his lower body is relatively fat and stubby in comparison. Moria's hair is red and his skin is a pale blue, matching his lips, armbands and the edges of his gloves. His coat and gloves are black, while his pants are bright orange with pale window shapes imprinted on them. He wears a fishnet shirt underneath a cravat, a necklace, and a blue crucifix-like ornament with claw-like appendages sprouting out from 3 of the cross's points. And as the monstrous pirate rambled on, Luffy spoke calmly yet got the pirate lord's attention. "Over here." Moria finally spotted the intruder and crawled ahead like a cheetah on its prey. "And who are you to trespass on my ship and ruin my nap?" Moria didn't need them anime teeth to show that he was mad. He already had sharp enough teeth. But it takes a lot more than that to scare this young pirate captain. "Name's Luffy. Monkey D. Luffy. You may or may not have heard of me, but I am the one that replaced Crocodile," the young man stated and left the room to Moria, whom had a particular look on his monster's face. "Is that so? That makes you one of us, the Shichibuki. So why did you total my tower?" The monster of a person was calm yet not concerned until he was angry again. "I made friends with a skeleton that happened to have an afro. He will like his shadow back. And I needed your attention. I am a busy man," Luffy said casually, as part of his charm. "So, unless it is too much work, can you please hand over his shadow? We will be on our way once we get it." "No way in hell." Moria proved to be the easiest provoked and with the loudest voice of all the Shichibuki. "There is no way a green horn, snoot-nosed brat that intruded on my turf will ever leave. Thriller Bark is my home, my turf, my ship. I am the master of anything and everything that dwells on Thriller Bark. I will not to be denied. I will raise an invincible army to take down Kaido, I know." Luffy interrupted while clearing out his ear again. He swore that he got an itch or something today. While Moria left his mouth open for flies to fly in, Luffy stared at him with both deadpan and disdain. "I get it. You fought Kaido and held your ground before ultimately losing the battle in your old crew. And guess what? I actually wanted to meet the pirate who matched Kaido of the Yonko, 4 emperors, when I was trained by Shanks. But now, all I see is a disappointment. That got Moria to clench his teeth again, and before he could cry out in outrage, you have lost your touch. You're just a rusted, empty shell of your old self. You're far below your prime. Your grief turned to inexcusable dining and laziness. You have gotten far too dependent on your Akuma no Mi and your status as a Shichibuki. And that is why you will never, ever beat Kaido, because you already lost to him, without even your rematch. Brat, you have lost your only chance of living, Dopplerman, Silhouette, Moria roared as if an alpha animal crossed for the last time. And upon his command, his very own shadow emerged into a 3-dimensional being that glared down on Luffy, whom did not look impressed or intimidated at all. Just remember that I asked politely, Luffy said, and just reached for Rei Atami. Just as the large, living shadow made a swat at him, it was cut clean in half almost instantly. Now that got Moria's attention before yawning again from his comfortable spot near the rumble. Nice kid, you're faster than you look. Moria spoke while still at ease, like he thinks that he still won. But my shadow is not alive, so it cannot die. And those who can't die can't lose. I don't care. Luffy, once again, cut off his opponent in his ramblings. Now take a good look at your puppet, idiot. Luffy didn't even bother to look and just used his finger to direct attention to the Dopplerman on the ground. Instead of getting itself together, it was withering and whimpering, as if the shadow was in pain and could barely stand it. Now take a look at this, moron. For once, Moria was the one scared. He had never seen his living shadow in such a state before. This never happened, not even when he faced Kaido. Still, Moria forced himself to look again, this time, at Luffy's katana and its blade. The smell of the sea entered his nose and Moria saw what could be boiling seawater, dripping from the katana. Now then, this is for sending your invisible prowler on my ship and for what he tried to do to Robin. Luffy now spoke in a real grim tone right before he straightened Rei Atami for an attack. Zenshin Umi Saperaru, full body sea spiral. Before Moria could get his bearing back together, he felt his whole body attacked in a spiral fashion. This drew blood indefinitely, but the large monster of a man felt something burn at his full body spiral-shaped wound that made his roar again. It hurt to even move his leg, but Luffy wasn't done yet. This is for screwing with a man, now a skeleton, over by stealing his shadow. Now he can't leave this fog and see his old friend. Luffy, this time, placed his katana away and activated his Gia Seikondo, Gear 2nd, form. Gomu Gomu no Jet Gatling, Gum Gum Jet Gatling. Luffy moved at speeds enhanced by the Gia Seikondo to punch at every square inch of Moria's body at least 10 times a minute. The monster of a man himself felt pain for what seemed to be an eternity, but it only lasted a single moment before Luffy allowed the Gia Seikondo to die down. Moria was nothing but a spiral cut and countless bruises, even fist imprints could be seen. But Luffy knew that his fellow Shichibuki was still conscious, just in a lot of pain. Despite lazing around for who knows how long, Moria had the endurance to not die from it all. And this is for breaking my heart as you were once my idol. Stretching his arm, Luffy grasped the rubble behind the beaten Moria, and, in an act that truly terrifies the latter, lifted a chunk of the tower that was as big as a house, over his head. Finally, he blacked out when Luffy slammed that giant piece of debris right on Moria's potbelly stomach. Now I am going to show myself around, and while my crew will help themselves to what they find, I have my own places to be and someone special to meet. XXXXX. Like Luffy had learned through Moria via his special listening technique, there was an army on the ship. An army of zombies, or, to be truthful, they were corpses and combinations of various dead items stitched together. They were only moving because of Moria's power, one that the Cage no Mi was capable of. Infuse the shadows of living things into the corpses to have the latter move in the ways the former did in their entire lives. And the Straw Hats had learned this from both Brook, who had finally left the ship to find his own shadow, and a ragtag group of castaways that also lost their shadows. And unfortunately for Moria's zombies, there was a major weakness that was taught to the Straw Hats: salt. As salt is a major component of the sea, one can force salt down the zombies' throats and the shadows that animated them will be forced out. Once that happens, and without shadows, the zombies will become the same lifeless and harmless corpses that just littered the ground beneath. It took hours for even a large group armed with salt to track down every single zombie on the island and force the shadows out. And they did have a deadline since dawn was coming, and those still without shadows were doomed to turn to dust. By the time they were sure that they got every single zombie and sent every shadow flying back to their owners, it was time to celebrate. Luffy sighed comfortably with a bottle of real fine wine, a full plate of food, both from Moria's food shortages, and in the company of both Nami and Robin. The two fine ladies could use the rest after the truly living nightmare last night. Plenty of those zombies were frightening, disturbing, and even gave off a repulsive stench. On Luffy's lap, one for each leg, were Chopper and Isa also resting. The latter was scared out of her wits by all the scary monsters and zombies, but she still put herself together to help out by pointing out to each zombie that still had a shadow. She found it easy once the difference between a living person and a corpse animated became clear. And Chopper, his story is very different yet relevant. Aside from Moria, there were 3 other figures in charge of the zombies, and another one of them happened to be the intruder on board the Grand King's brew. And the least speaking of that violator, the better. Anyhow, Chopper happened to have an idol who turned out to be one of the 4 figures in charge. A once famous and gifted surgeon named Dr. Hogback. Chopper had known Hogback during his years training to be a doctor on his home island. He wanted very greatly to meet him until Chopper learned that Hogback had supposedly disappeared. And here, on Thriller Bark, was the doctor himself, and Chopper learned that his idol had also changed. While the zombies were their enemies for sure, Hogback saw them as property and slaves. The saddest part was that Hogback had a crush on a woman who strung his heartstrings until breaking them when she revealed that she had a fiancé already, and even worse when she died in an unfortunate accident. And Hogback sought out Moria to bring her back, only for the doctor to treat the corpse of his love that was infused with the shadow of a maid like trash. That was enough to have Chopper turn into his master form and beat Hogback to a hideous-looking pulp. Nobody knew what happened to the doctor after Chopper left him to wither in his pain, but they didn't care. They just wanted to enjoy a party made in honor of conquering Thriller Bark. And not just good food and good company, there was also good music too. Brook said that he was a musician when he was alive. And not just anyone that is limited to one instrument. Brook had learned how to master almost every classical musical instrument as well. Now he is playing a good tone on a piano that was found and placed to be played. And of course, Brook did get his shadow back. And the corpse that was granted his shadow was indeed a samurai. But that alone was bad news, since samurai were not from any other country besides Wano, a land that is completely cut off from the world government. So, if a samurai was ever spotted, they definitely came from Wano. But to make things hell for sure was that the corpse was, in life, a hero among samurai and the citizens of Wano. His name was Ryama, considered to be one of the most powerful samurai ever lived, and was both feared and beloved by his skills in the art along with a sword just as legendary as he was. The Shisui, clear autumn water. Brook knew who he was and actually impressed Luffy by using a sword style of incredible skill and speed that unfortunately meant nothing to Ryama, who used the same style but with a dash of strength as well. It was enough to even give Zoro and Kuma a run for their money. And while Zoro fought hard to hold the zombie Ryama, Kuro used his own speed to stuff a bag of salt into the mouth of the zombie, finally releasing Brook's shadow back to its rightful owner. As for the dead body of the samurai hero and his sword, Luffy labeled them to be stolen property that was stolen again. But this time, they were going to return both items to Wano one day. Frankie was instructed to construct something that will both protect and preserve the body and the blade and keep both of them from being stolen again. Zoro understood that a sword can still be a treasure to a country, and he still had 3 good blades from the East Blue on hand. Luffy was more interested in Brook's style and asked the skeleton for some tips, just something entirely new to practice. In return, Luffy will help Brook learn how to apply more power to his hits while not losing his speed, and even the latter can protect his bones with haki. And then there is the new elephant in the room. "Will you like some more food, master?" Rather than disrupting the captain and his company, they were just a bit annoyed that they were interrupted. And they all directed their eyes to the hovering girl carrying a plate with an anthill of food. "Thank you, Perona," Luffy said with a dry tone that someone got his attention from his company. "And while I appreciate the offer, I will also like it if you will stop calling me that," Luffy added while gently taking the plate filled with food. This was Perona, the final member of the 4 executives that ran Thriller Bark with Moria as the captain. Perona is a short young woman with unusually big, round eyes, and she has long, light pink hair that she keeps tied into 2 pigtails with black and white flower hairpins. She wears a red crown with a black cross on her head, as well as red lipstick and a thick layer of black eyeliner. Her white long-sleeved 3 different black heart-shaped shirt was short enough to expose her belly. She wears a red mini cape with a pink ribbon on front. Her black and white striped tights completely cover her legs, and she wears a mini skirt and a red and gold belt with a heart belt buckle, as well as red buckled boots. She usually keeps her toes pointing inwards in a pigeon-toed manner, and carried around a red parasol shaped like a cute version of a mini devil. And she had the power of an Akuma no Mi, the Horo Horo no Mi, hollow hollow fruit. Her power was to create the very same ghosts that freaked out Brook and tried to assault Luffy on his way to Moria's quarters. And her favorite way of using her powers were tears her enemies and make them so negative that they couldn't even stand on their own. In a nutshell, this power can bring down any army with ease. Whatever Moria knew that or not, the ghost girl has changed sides. And how did Luffy do that will be a story for another time. Let's just say that she finally found someone far more powerful than Moria and knew how to actually withstand her powers for the first time. Now she is trying to cozy herself to her new master, and Perona had the nerve to do it in front of his company too. Once they get back to civilization, Nami and the other girls will have to give this ghost girl a crash course on how to be a real woman, and no man will be stupid enough to get in their way. By the way, Brook, Luffy broke the ice and directed the attention to the skeleton, still playing the piano like a pro. Every Straw Hat from the East Blue overheard that and already understood what Luffy was about to say. The others were still in the dark. I want to ask you about the twin capes and the whale waiting for you there. Brook heard that and halted in his playing. Twin capes? Whale? What are you talking about? The skeleton spoke in a quiet tone. I am talking about Laboon. We know him. Luffy answered in a gentle tone. This was serious and heavy to bring up, so Luffy is taking his time. And no one could get themselves to ask what was going on. He still misses you, Brook. He knows that his friends are still out there and he still wants to see you. Laboon is still waiting at that cove, for me? Brook couldn't find the strength to keep playing. It was like one of his many dreams he had after he first became a lonely skeleton on that wrecked ship. He had to know if he was hearing all this right. He cries every day for you, hear him, Brook. He was willing to try and destroy the Red Line if it meant to see you again. Luffy responded, and with a sad tone this time, as Brook needed to hear what Laboon had been trying to do for who knows how long. But the Red Line is. Brook was now horrified that his friend had been trying to destroy what can't be destroyed, just to see him again. I promise you, Brook, he won't be trying that again. I swore an oath to him for a rematch in the future on the condition that he won't bang his head on the Red Line ever again. Luffy spoke again, to reassure the skeleton again. Come with us, we will take you to the end of the Grand Line, and after we do, you will see Laboon and never leave him again. With that, Brook slammed his hands on the piano keys with a loud bang but showed tears from his empty eye sockets. Thank you, for a person that was all bones and clothes. Brook let out a mighty yell from a heart that he no longer has. Thank you all. I always thought I will never get to see Laboon again. I thought that he had forgotten about me, or worse, thought I did. But I can move on, knowing the truth. Thank you, thank you. So, are you on board? Luffy gave out his hand in welcome, and soon enough, Brook took his own and shook it. Welcome to the Straw Hat Pirates, Dead Bones Brook. It was a beautiful sight to see a man reduced to bones find new friends and even a new crew to sail with. Of course, Luffy had something else to address. By the way, Lola? Lola was the name of a woman who happened to be the leader of the castaways who were trapped on Thriller Bark, as they all had lost their shadows. But thanks to the Straw Hats giving a helping hand, they can walk in the light again, literally. Lola is a tall, corpulent woman with short and thin legs. She has small eyes and a pronounced nose above her large, shiny red lips, one missing tooth, and a large head. Under a small black bowler hat, her pink hair is braided into two pigtails. Yes, Mugiwara, Straw Hat. When were you going to tell us that you're the daughter of a Yonko? Silence was heard, and while his crew moved their heads almost like robots towards Lola, the castaways did the same but in Luffy's direction instead. Huh. You know, XXXXX, yes, guys, my mom is a Yonko. But I am an outsider to both her and her family. Lola explained. I tried my best to be a good girl to her, but instead, I realized that she only saw me as another tool to use, something to give away for her own benefit. So, I ran away to find love on my own accord. Too bad that I ran into Moria and we were trapped here until you guys arrived. Of course, Lola, we are not going to be stuck up and tell on her mom. It is just hard to believe that we will run into a child of a Yonko in paradise. They are not only the four most powerful pirates in the world, they all control the new world. Luffy stated while relaxed, once again. And this time, his company did not mind Perona literally hovering over them. Brook also went back to his piano playing, now that he got over the waterworks. On another note, are you? Something had froze Luffy in his speech and even the expression on his face. Suddenly the Straw Hats also felt it. Something that was there and now, no more. A person who is supposed to out but alive, is not. The others noticed this and were instantly worried. And the ice broke. Hand me a Den Den Mushi, transponder snail. Now. Luffy spoke up, and one of the castaways was able to bring a medium-sized Den Den Mushi in a snap. The captain then took out a small paper slip, scanned it briefly before tearing it and held it to be burnt by one of the candles. Some of the sharper minds present guessed that it was a phone number, but everyone was going to learn who was the one on the other side when Luffy punched it into the machine and waited for the receiver to pick up. After a moment, a voice was heard for sure, and it was deep and serious. Who is this? Garp's grandson. Luffy simply said. It only took the response on the other side that clued in everyone as who the captain was calling. What? Why is a pirate, even his grandson, is calling me? How did you even get my personal number? This was definitely not when Luffy called Shanks or Whitebeard or even the Gorosei. 5 Elder Stars. No, this was whole different startling phone call. For someone as smart as you, common sense has escaped you, Sengoku. Now everyone was scared. The young captain was talking to the head of the very navy. Now I have something to say to you. I am disappointed, and this is the last straw. I have no idea what you are talking about, Mugiwara. Not after how you dare barging with the Gorosei. Help yourself on one of my ships and even drop off the map despite the title you actually accepted. What do you want? Luffy had a smirk as sharp as his blades, and that was always bad news. Funny you should bring that up, Sengoku. The Gorosei had been good for so long before they went back on their word and broke their promise. And I warned them about this too, and what will happen if they don't honor what I offered. A smart man like you knows what I am talking about by now. Sengoku picked up the underlying threat and it showed on the Den Den Mushi. No, 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 no. As a member of the Shichibuki and the replacement for Crocodile. No, the desperation and fear were just fuel to the forest fire as Luffy was not to be stopped or deterred in his decision. I quit. Suddenly the Straw Hats also felt it. Something that was there and now, no more. A person who is supposed to out but alive, is not. The others noticed this and were instantly worried. And the ice broke. Hand me a Den Den Mushi, now. Luffy spoke up and one of the castaways was able to bring a medium-sized Den Den Mushi in a snap. The captain then took out a small paper slip, scanned it briefly before tearing it and held it to be burnt by one of the candles. Some of the sharper minds present guessed that it was a phone number, but everyone was going to learn who was the one on the other side when Luffy punched it into the machine and waited for the receiver to pick up. After a moment, a voice was heard for sure and it was deep and serious. Who is this? Garp's grandson. Luffy simply said. It only took the response on the other side that clued in everyone as who the captain was calling. What? Why is a pirate, even his grandson, is calling me? How did you even get my personal number? This was definitely not when Luffy called Shanks or Whitebeard or even the Gorosei. 5 Elder Stars. No, this was whole different startling phone call. For someone as smart as you, common sense has escaped you, Sengoku. Now everyone was scared. The young captain was talking to the head of the very navy. Now I have something to say to you. I am disappointed, and this is the last straw. I have no idea what you are talking about, Mugiwara, not after how you dare barging with the Gorosei. Help yourself on one of my ships and even drop off the map despite the title you actually accepted. What do you want? Luffy had a smirk as sharp as his blades, and that was always bad news. Funny you should bring that up, Sengoku. The Gorosei had been good for so long before they went back on their word and broke their promise. And I warned them about this too, and what will happen if they don't honor what I offered. A smart man like you knows what I am talking about by now. Sengoku picked up the underlying threat and it showed on the Den Den Mushi. No, 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 no. As a member of the Shichibuki and the replacement for Crocodile. No, the desperation and fear were just fuel to the forest fire as Luffy was not to be stopped or deterred in his decision. I quit. $# and %# and that same Den Den Mushi, transponder snail, went on, cursing and swearing close to an actual sailor, and even foaming at the mouth. It was enough to make even the likes of Zoro or Sanji cringe. Nami and Nijiko had to try and protect Isa from those adulterous words. And they call you the Buddha. Luffy just commented without a care in the world. Do you have any idea what you have done? Sengoku finally got his bearing together to actually speak clearly. That is what I should be asking you, Luffy responded. I had no intent to cause you so much trouble, even though I became a pirate, but Crocodile challenged me anyways and he lost. You wanted a replacement to assure the whole world that you haven't lost your touch yet. I agreed under one simple condition that even a 5-year-old in charge could do. Keep out a pirate named Teach. Luffy paused to catch his breath and to let it sink in. It still felt heavy somehow. And you people had broken your promise. You killed off a Shichibuki, 7 royal warlords, to make room for a certain pirate who wanted Crocodile's throne until I took it. Now you have lost another Shichibuki because of it. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Is that why you are telling me this, pirate scum? To laugh at my misfortune like your grandfather does? Sengoku was still angry. You had it all. Protection from the Marines, freedom to sail and your bounty frozen. And now you have forsaken all that, because of a broken promise. Not just a broken promise but the war that you have just started. Luffy answered, and that silenced the whole thriller bark once again. And while you people go to war, the new guy goes to where pirates go to pay for their crimes. That is where he will build his crew and finish the job to take what he really wants. The seat of a Yonko, 4 emperors. Nobody had anything to say, not even Sengoku. I am only telling you this because you fought beside my grandpa for years. And I am warning you now, Teach will make sure that the war will end with his old captain's death. There will be untold turmoil to follow and you will have only yourselves to blame. This is why I took Crocodile's title, and now that Teach is in the ranks anyways, I am not going to play this game anymore. You deal with it now. Luffy ended that call with a mighty slam of the teller onto the machine, prompting the Den Den Mushi to fall asleep. The ragtag gang were still shivering from the argument with the head of the navy and said nothing. The senior Straw Hats knew by now that Luffy will never do something like this without good intentions and on the basis of honor and dignity. They may have done the same. For some reason, not even Nero and T-Bone could get themselves to protest quitting the Shichibuki. Yet the trouble was just starting to brew. Show yourself already, Kuma. XXXXX. That name was feared even among fellow sailors of the Grand Line, and it is no wonder that the ragtag gang started to panic. Nero and T-Bone paled at the face, and even Robin started to shiver, as if it was Kuzan all over again. Perona also knew about this man and cowered behind her new captain. Luffy finally got to his feet and with a turn of his attention directed everyone else's to what could only be a giant of a man. Mugiwara, Straw Hat, or if you prefer, the Liber Glade. Kuma is an enormous man. He is carrying a Bible. His overall appearance resembles that of a bear, though there are a few key differences. His eyes are strangely covered by either a pair of glasses or clear mirrored lenses. His hat features a pair of rounded ears, and, along with the dark blue fabric of his pants, is covered in brown spots. His jacket contains a large white design reminiscent of a target crosshair or a Koda sign. There are also several white paw prints lining the bottom hem of his coat. He also has a long protruding chin. "Don't bother because I know that you are not here for a social call." Luffy responded causally, while his crew were mixed on this mountain of a man. Ranging from not caring, to be cautious, to be terrified. "You're here because of two things. Moria and myself." While Kuma truly hadn't changed his expression, one can have the nagging feeling that Luffy had hit the nail on the head. "Correct. We have all decided that Gecko Moria truly has gotten soft and weak. Not at all the same pirate that matched blows with Kaido." Kuma finally spoke up. "And you, Mugiwara, have already determined who is said to finish off Moria, to be granted the latter's title. What we never counted on was you leaving the Shichibuki. What can I say? When it comes to a certain club of 5 old bone bags, a deal can only last so long before it is broken. And for a chance, the joke was on them." Kuma did not respond and nor did anyone else. Because to get nosy will be a dead wish when 2 Shichibuki-level pirates, even just one current and the other former, are involved. But I am still peeved that they couldn't say no even to a slimeball that teaches. I don't care if he served 20 years under Shirahige, Whitebeard, Sama. That just makes him like a flea riding on a dog's back and away from anything that will crush him. Not to mention what he did before jumping the Mobi. Nevertheless, you had quitted the ranks right when the disgrace got disposed of and now there's only 6 of us left. Why have you forfeited such privileges when the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, invited you themselves?" Kuma responded, still as emotional and fluid as a robot. Luffy just snorted at the question. "They didn't invite anyone in that letter they sent with their carrier bat. They demanded that I fix my mistake by taking the throne I kicked Crocodile off. The evidence recovered from Baroque works of Crocodile's attempt at Akua Alabastra was far stronger. They couldn't deny the facts, so they did their next favorite thing, have someone else be in the guilty light. They avoided answering to the world about their poor judgment regarding how the Shichibuki are supposed to be obedient of the world government. No matter how many things they hear it, the Straw Hats still feel the weight of this criticism. But the other point I want to make because you move on your orders, is that I don't want to hurt someone that works for my dad." That really broke the ice and the Straw Hats turned towards Kuma with widened eyes. Before anyone from the Ragtag gang, and newest Straw Hat could ask. "You work for Dragon." Now, at this point, everyone was struggling to process how one of the Shichibuki was also a revolutionist, right under the world's most wanted man. As for Kuma himself, it was like that frown of his couldn't get any more redefined. "Impressive, you will make even your father fear you. After all, secrecy is how he runs his organization." The tall man stated, "Now I know you are too smart to actually try to sell me out to the world government, which means, despite one hand holding his Bible, Kuma still removed one of his gloves. I still will use force to carry out my mission." Suddenly, Luffy moved from his spot into a defensive stance with both hands showing their palms, right before a powerful force collided and picked up almost everything in sight. The Straw Hats all got up and ready to fight while Najiko got Isa into her arms. The Ragtag people hurried away and even Perona moved to safety. "It will take a lot more than that to bring my head in, Kuma," Luffy said in a confident tone to the massive man with smoke drifting from his big palm. How dare, everyone knew that this was the voice of a certain blonde. "You tried to harm the lovely ladies." Sanji charged in with a mighty kick to Kuma's face, only for the chef to cry out in pain. After falling to the ground, he rolled around while clutching his leg. "Damn it, what is that guy made of?" This spooked everyone. There was barely anything that Sanji couldn't kick, especially when he learned Haki. "I am more than just a pirate, little chef. If you look down on the Shichibuki then you will die. Now stay out of our way." Kuma answered in a tone as expressionless and emotionless as his face. That was when, Hyakuhachi Pound Ho, 108-pound Phoenix, Zoro sent a mighty energy attack from his 3 swords at Kuma, who just moved his palm in its way. Yet it didn't even budge him and instead, the attack was sent back again. And while everyone nearby was trying not to get cut, Kuma got ready to attack himself. Suddenly, everyone saw for a split second that a rapier was sent right through Kuma. But instead of damaging the large man, he disappeared. Yet Luffy, who was the one who attempted to ambush Kuma, did not even twitch his eyebrow. It was like he actually expected that to happen, and so was the large man appearing behind him, with his own massive hand ready to strike. Yet Luffy moved out of the way with ease, while everyone else tried not to be blown away. Those who were near enough to the strike point were shocked to see a crater in the perfect shape of a kitten's paw. This of course scared and confused the witnesses. Luffy just chuckled. I can never know how you keep a straight face saying the silly name of your power, and it still scares me. Kuma moved himself back up to stand up, and it was when everyone saw what was on his palm. Actual kitten paws. Correct. Mugiwara. I ate the Niku no mi. Paw fruit. I now hold the power to repel anything in both hands as a paw human. Suddenly the tension turned to awkwardness. They were scared of cat paws. Now they agree with Luffy. How is it possible to say such a ridiculous name with a straight face? Now then, Kuma silently said and raised his palm at the Straw Hats again. This time they were on high alert. They raised their hands just in time for another shockwave in the shape of kitten paws was sent their way at the speed of a cannonball. I believe that I still have my mission to take you in for desertion of the ranks of Shichibuki, Mugiwara. I quit, Kuma. Luffy answered in a casual tone. He didn't even wait for a response because at this point, Kuma truly was a robot. Speaking only when he wishes. How many times do I have to say it that even the likes of you can get it? And you don't lose much either, just a member. I know Akagami, red hair, Shanks, and that's just it. My bounty set a new record in my home ocean of the East Blue. Look it up. I don't see why they sent in their loyal lapdog to dispose a simple, lowly pirate. Luffy glared at Kuma, who still hadn't answered his jibes. Besides, I know that my father will never allow you to turn in his son. You are just here to show that you mean business and keep up your facade. You are not even trying to hid anything from me. I even know that you won't go with your mission. Kuma was still silent, and yet he lowered his hand, then moved to put his gloves back on. You have not thrown in a pebble this time, Mugiwara. He finally spoke, which broke the ice. You dropped a handful into the pond and the ripples will clash continually with no end in sight. You better be ready for the future that will very much end in war. With that said, Kuma had vanished. Everyone searched with their eyes and their senses, and it was confirmed that the tyrant had actually left the island for places unknown. Where, they didn't care. Just to let a breath they were holding in for their lives. And they had no idea what could this day have led to. XXXXX. After everything that happened with the phone call and the coming of Kuma, nobody wanted to stay up any longer and got comfy somewhere to sleep. And so, in the next morning. Okay guys. I managed to fix the rudder on this thing, so now it is sail-worthy. Frankie shouted down from the ghost ship that is now repaired and in no danger of sailing around in circles again. Brook felt a bit sad since that floating hunk of wood was his home and was where his old crew perished along with his old body. At least it will help the ragtag gang finally leave what is left of Thriller Bark, after so many nights and days of hiding from the zombies and the sun respectively. Thank you all. Lola addressed the Straw Hats and took out a piece of paper from her pocket. Take this when you enter the new world, it might come in handy. Luffy grinned a bit when Nami took the paper in hand. He knew what it was for, and there was this nagging feeling it will be a big help in the future. It's no problem at all, Lola. I just hope you won't run into any more trouble on your way to Water 7. Luffy said with a firm handshake. In the meanwhile, we will continue on our way in the opposite direction. And I know that we are just one island left to visit in paradise. Ah yes, the Sabaody archipelago. You're in luck because that island is the closest one to the end of paradise that meets the red line. Plenty of sailors go there to get ready for the new world. As it happens to have means to reach the dream of many sailors, Fishman Island. As soon as she spoke those words, a certain chief got fired up. Oh, Fishman Island, home to the fishman and more importantly the mermaids. Sanji started to dance and sing like an actual fool, to which everyone twitched too. It was sad to see such a sight, and especially in front of actual couples. Kaya and Carol just made sure their boyfriends don't get any ideas. Nami on the other hand knows for sure that her boyfriend won't bat an eye. Never mind our chef, he will break out of it soon. I still wish you and your gang the best of luck on your way to Water 7. Luffy stated with a handshake with Lola. We need to be getting ready to leave ourselves. No problem, Mugiwara. And thanks again. Lola waved goodbye as she boarded Brook's old ship for Water 7. What will happen next will be her own story to tell. XXXXX later. Oh my, what a lovely vessel you have. Brook, despite his age, acted like a kid in a new candy store as he lit her deck of the Grand King's brew. I am amazed how it appears to be a battleship and a galleon in one ship. Oomph. Brook's excited was grounded when someone shoved a barrel into his arms. Listen, Bones. We get that you are new on this ship, but we are casting off now on Captain's orders. The tour will come later. So, get busy and follow the guys into the hold. Frank pointed out to where the guys were heading and Brook hurried to catch up. Yeesh, to think it will be exciting to recruit new mates, but we keep forgetting about this bit. No one remaining on deck wanted to respond to that, not that Frank cared. Are you sure that we ought to allow such a clown on our ship? Nami knew by now to trust Luffy's judgment, but as a young woman, she was not afraid to voice what she thought. Which is why she is being patient with not one more woman but two now competing with her to share time with the captain. Nami now treasures the time she has Luffy all to herself. We all are goofs when we feel like relaxing, but I know that Brook will soon be part of the family we are growing. Besides, his sword style still interests me. Nami giggled to know that nothing is going to change his mind, but it was somehow cute to see Luffy interested in something new. For a seemingly unstoppable pirate, there is a little kid in the captain. Is it any wonder how he can attract lovely ladies with the charm of a confident adult and an honest child? Thankfully, it didn't take long to finish, and the Grand King's brew left Thriller Bark behind and headed for Sabaody Archipelago, the final stop before Fishman Island and afterwards the New World. But with the growing turmoil in the center of the world government, who knows what will happen next? Thank you all. Lola addressed the Straw Hats and took out a piece of paper from her pocket. Take this when you enter the New World. It might come in handy. Luffy grinned a bit when Nami took the paper in hand. He knew what it was for, and there was this nagging feeling it will be a big help in the future. It's no problem at all, Lola. I just hope you won't run into any more trouble on your way to Water 7. Luffy said with a firm handshake. In the meanwhile, we will continue on our way in the opposite direction. And I know that we are just one island left to visit in paradise. Ah yes, the Sabaody Archipelago. You're in luck because that island is the closest one to the end of paradise that meets the red line. Plenty of sailors go there to get ready for the New World, as it happens to have means to reach the dream of many sailors, Fishman Island. As soon as she spoke those words, a certain chief got fired up. Oh, Fishman Island, home to the fishman and more importantly the mermaids. Sanji started to dance and sing like an actual fool, to which everyone twitched too. It was sad to see such a sight, and especially in front of actual couples. Kaya and Carol just made sure their boyfriends don't get any ideas. Nami on the other hand knows for sure that her boyfriend won't bat an eye. Never mind our chef, he will break out of it soon. I still wish you and your gang the best of luck on your way to Water 7. Luffy stated with a handshake with Lola. We need to be getting ready to leave ourselves. No problem, Mugiwara. And thanks again. Lola waved goodbye as she boarded Brook's old ship for Water 7. What will happen next will be her own story to tell. XXXXX later. Oh my, what a lovely vessel you have. Brook, despite his age, acted like a kid in a new candy store as he literally spun around on the deck of the Grand King's brew. I'm amazed how it appears to be a battleship and a galleon in one ship. Oomph. Brook's excited was grounded when someone shoved a barrel into his arms. Listen, Bones. We get that you are new on this ship, but we are casting off now on Captain's orders. The tour will come later. So, get busy and follow the guys into the hold. Frank pointed out to where the guys were heading and Brook hurried to catch up. Yeesh, to think it will be exciting to recruit new mates, but we keep forgetting about this bit. No one remaining on deck wanted to respond to that, not that Frank cared. Are you sure that we ought to allow such a clown on our ship? Nami knew by now to trust Luffy's judgment, but as a young woman, she was not afraid to voice what she thought. Which is why she is being patient with not one more woman but two now competing with her to share time with the captain. Nami now treasures the time she has Luffy all to herself. We all are goofs when we feel like relaxing, but I know that Brook will soon be part of the family we are growing. Besides, his sword style still interests me. Nami giggled to know that nothing is going to change his mind, but it was somehow cute to see Luffy interested in something new. For a seemingly unstoppable pirate, there is a little kid in the captain. Is it any wonder how he can attract lovely ladies with the charm of a confident adult and an honest child? Thankfully, it didn't take long to finish, and the Grand King's brew left Thriller Bark behind and headed for Sabaody Archipelago, the final stop before Fishman Island and afterwards the New World. But with the growing turmoil in the center of the world government, who knows what will happen next? Behold, everyone! Luffy spoke with Nami in his arm, as if a married couple, as the entire crew takes a good look at a red stone wall that seemed to go on forever. That's the red line, the sign that we all had arrived at the end of paradise. And half of us hail from the same ocean. Zoro spoke with a forlorn look. Luffy, Alvida, Nami, Usopp, Kaya, Kuro, Jin and Najiko all nodded. Still, plenty of us were born in the other oceans. Yeah, I am actually from the South Blue. Frankie stated, along with Frank and Nero. Both of them nodded. My home island of Ohara was in the west. And I believe that Carol and Grace both were too. Both girls confirmed it. I am actually from the Grand Line, born on the snowy island that is now called Sakura Island. Chopper jumped in and dragged out Isa to everyone's attention. And she is from Sky Island. They all know that Chopper and don't do that again. Somehow, Isa made a defiant kid with a pout still look cute. Then she realized something. But what about you, Sanji-san and T-Bone-san? Sanji looked a bit ashamed to see that Frankie and Brook also want to know. Sorry for not telling you like I told everyone present on Jaya. I am actually from the North Blue. I was only raised in the East Blue. I too am from the North Blue, from an island that hails generations of knights. However, I had a dream to join the Navy as well. T-Bone spoke. At first everyone was freaked out by my face and yet mocked me for playing knights, until they got a glimpse of how effective I was in combat and I was made captain in no time. That was all before the events of Eni's lobby, of course. Everyone nodded at that statement. It was an ordeal that will never be forgotten for ages to come that a band of pirates stormed the government's backyard and got away with it. While everyone was taking all this in, Luffy felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. It wasn't exactly like the intruder from Thriller Bark, it was more like a warning that something is coming, but it was both hostile and non-hostile at the same time. Thankfully, the captain knew exactly what this was. "Hey guys," to the starboard. Eyes turned towards the starboard side of the ship just in time to see a sea king appear with teeth shown with a hungry grin. Yet no one screamed, or even moved an eyebrow. Something told them that this giant thing was no threat nor anything important to note. "Sorry bud." But Luffy calmly spoke with his right arm already ringing inward for a mean punch. Gum gum shot-o, gum gum spring shot. With the aim of a pro, Luffy hit the massive beast at the very spot along its neck that it was instantly beaten. But what got everyone's attention was when the Sea King coughed up something before it hit the water again. Something that flew and flew high into the sky until it started to fall, heading towards the deck, only for it to land in Luffy's arms. While everyone was getting a better look, Luffy chuckled. "Why did I think I will find you guys like this again?" Luffy, those figures in the captain's arms suddenly embraced him around the head, obviously knowing Luffy and showing gratitude from being saved. Once it was all over, they saw what could only be a mermaid. Luffy nodded. "Her name is Cammy, a kissing gourami mermaid. She is a friend of mine from Fishman Island." While still in his arms, she is shown with green hair and dark purple eyes. She wore a yellow and pink t-shirt that exposed her stomach. Cammy has a pink tail with light fins, and her dorsal fin is white. Everyone started to flock over to Cammy after she was placed on the deck gently. She had no idea why so many different people were trying to get a good look. No one could say exactly why because it was a bad memory and it will be plain rude. "Now you are done treating her like a zoo attraction. You need to meet this great guy." Luffy spoke up and it got the crew to see what could only be a starfish wearing a turban and standing like a proud man in the captain's hands. "This is Papug. He is Cammy's best friend and, pun intended, star fashion designer." Before anyone could point out that it was a starfish, very true. And the craziest part was that for the longest time I thought I was human until I finally realized that I am a starfish. Only in the grand line I suppose. It couldn't be truer than the looks on everyone's faces and that they couldn't even peep in response. "No, what broke the ice," was what Luffy said next, like the times before. "They both are friends with Hachin, the crew. XXXXX. Later, the Grand King's brew is sailing at a steady pace along the waters while the atmosphere was not as steady. Remind me again, why are we rescuing a fishman that helped Arlong invade the navigator's home island back in the East Blue? Kuro spoke with slight irritation. He knows that his new captain will never do anything without thinking, but he just wants to walk through it one more time. Because he is the single fishman that had next to no negative intent when we stormed Arlong Park months ago. And, like I said, he is friends with Cammy and Papug. Finally, he can give his good word to a certain bar we can crash in once we arrive in Sabaody. Luffy responded while still facing forward. Now keep your eyes peeled because I am getting a ton of unfriendly signatures surrounding Hachi straight ahead. He shouted for all to hear, and while the crew got to work, Cammy and Papug leaned over the railing with concern as the ship was heading into some unfriendly waters. They were also very worried for Hachi as they trusted that their friend knew where the octopus fishman was. Soon enough they came across what could be an encampment fort built above the water with several large beams. And right in the front center was a cage. A cage that had someone locked, bound and chained inside. Hachi, Cammy and Papug sprinted forward to the forehead of the Grand King's brew to see who the prisoner was. None of the crew members bothered to follow. "Hello there, Hachin, you're looking like you doused yourself in your own ink. That is the grossest thing I ever seen." Luffy chimed in when the octopus fishman was in clear view. "We are here to get you out." What made Luffy grin was that Hachin still tried to hide how he was the same from the East Blue until, by the way, what happened to Arlong. He and the others got captured, but I managed to get away. I tried to return to Fishman Island but got caught here instead. Still the lovably gullible and naive octopus fishman. Hachin realized too late that he let his disguise up. "Whatever, Hachi. Now let's get those guys out of hiding and get you down." As Luffy was speaking, several figures emerged from the water. It looked like bikers riding motorbike handles on oversized fish. That resembled the actual flying fish. Cammy and Papug screamed at the top of their lungs while Hachi looked frightened himself, almost like he led his friends into a trap. Fortunately for him, the trap was never going to work. Not when Luffy was leading the charge. The Straw Hats didn't fear the ambushers and didn't even bat an eye when the attackers suddenly fell back into the sea. A lot has happened since the East Blue. Now we are getting you out right now so we can make good on getting to Sabaody. Now duck your head. Luffy spoke up again and took a swift swipe at the cage, cutting it where the bars were connected to the top. Hachin expected to fall into the ocean to wash off the ink and hopefully getting the bounds off. Instead, he landed on a tarp on the ship's deck. And that ink is going to be a huge pain to wash off, so be careful, Hachi. The octopus could only grin to see how much has changed since he last encountered the Straw Hats while Cammy and Papug worked to get the ropes and ink off. He could have sworn that the crew had doubled and maybe tripled in size, and the same can be said for the ship. Hachi felt something of an old man right about now. XXXXX later, I swear, you are too much for words. Mugiwara, Straw Hat, Hatchin mused. Clean of the ink, yet still in disbelief. And right now, he was hanging back on the deck. Just how did you get those guys to follow you? It's true, just like that. The Straw Hats gained a pack of followers right after they got Hatchin out. The Flying Fish Riders? All I did was talk it through with their boss. Luffy responded on his beach chair, reading the newspaper. Besides, you truly make the best octopus takoyaki. Even my stomach, made of rubber too, loved them. That last statement filled the air with chuckles and a few giggles. It was still adorable to see the captain's childish side that comes out every now and then. Then that innocent face grew grim. On another and more serious note, the tone was enough to grab everyone's attention. We have had this peace because the Navy has no time to scour every square volume of the ocean. In other words, once we reach dry land, it will be time for bounty posters again. Something that was put on hold back in Alabastra, when I joined the Shichibuki, but not anymore. Then Luffy turned to Chopper and Isa. Don't think for a moment that they won't put bounties on kids. One of us had to live with it, and that's one too many in my book. There was a pause with a hint of resentment in the air while Robin said nothing. The hands on her heart and look on her face said the whole thing. That her captain will never stop thinking about her concerns, no matter how cheesy that is. And you too, Luffy continued, breaking the ice and pointing at T-Bone and Nero. You both once worked for the Navy, the government, and both. They won't be happy to see you part of pirates now. They may have something nasty in waiting, so keep your guard up. Then he returned to his paper. Yet everyone else that wants a bounty, with a big number and a scary picture. The Navy has eyes everywhere when a new poster is needed. Don't forget. XXXXX soon enough, they arrived at a site that looks like an entire forest held up by countless large roots. This was a mangrove, and not just a simple one. This is Sabaody. It was called an archipelago as it is not an island, but the world's largest collection of trees that form several island-sized areas steady for buildings and settlements to be made. We are here, everyone. This is where we will rest, restock and prepare for the journey to Fishman Island. Luffy shouted out for all to hear and everyone cheered. And the first thing they all noticed were the abundance of large bubbles. Apparently, this was another major feature about Sabaody, that the trees were special ones native to paradise. While sounding weird, the trees breathe in the air and create the bubbles with their special resin that is quite light and rather resistant. They are more than strong enough to lift a person or three before it gets crowded. The only catch is that once the bubbles raise too high, they burst. After finding a suitable spot to set anchor, it was important to remember the number on the tree to know where to find the ship again. Kind like finding your car in the world's biggest, most crowded parking lot. While a few will remain on the Grand King's brew to maintain it, a couple of groups were made to run errands with a destination to meet up later. Yet there was something very important, grimly important. It showed on both Hatchin's and Luffy's faces. If you see someone assaulted or killed in cold blood by certain people wearing bubbles around their heads, do not try to confront them. Then that innocent face grew grim. On another and more serious note, the tone was enough to grab everyone's attention. We have had this peace because the Navy has no time to scour every square volume of the ocean. In other words, once we reach dry land, it will be time for bounty posters again. Something that was put on hold back in Alabastra, when I joined the Shichibuki, but not anymore. Then Luffy turned to Chopper and Isa. Don't think for a moment that they won't put bounties on kids. One of us had to live with it, and that's one too many in my book. There was a pause with a hint of resentment in the air while Robin said nothing. The hands on her heart and look on her face said the whole thing. That her captain will never stop thinking about her concerns, no matter how cheesy that is. And you too, Luffy continued, breaking the ice and pointing at T-Bone and Nero. You both once worked for the Navy, the government, and both. They won't be happy to see you part of pirates now. They may have something nasty in waiting, so keep your guard up. Then he returned to his paper. Yet everyone else that wants a bounty, with a big number and a scary picture. The Navy has eyes everywhere when a new poster is needed. Don't forget. XXXXX soon enough, they arrived at a site that looks like an entire forest held up by countless large roots. This was a mangrove, and not just a simple one. This is Sabaody. It was called an archipelago as it is not an island, but the world's largest collection of trees that form several island-sized areas steady for buildings and settlements to be made. We are here, everyone. This is where we will rest, restock and prepare for the journey to Fishman Island. Luffy shouted out for all to hear and everyone cheered. And the first thing they all noticed were the abundance of large bubbles. Apparently, this was another major feature about Sabaody, that the trees were special ones native to paradise. While sounding weird, the trees breathe in the air and create the bubbles with their special resin that is quite light and rather resistant. They are more than strong enough to lift a person or three before it gets crowded. The only catch is that once the bubbles raise too high, they burst. After finding a suitable spot to set anchor, it was important to remember the number on the tree to know where to find the ship again. Kind like finding your car in the world's biggest, most crowded parking lot. While a few will remain on the Grand King's brew to maintain it, a couple of groups were made to run errands with a destination to meet up later. Yet there was something very important, grimly important. It showed on both Hachin's and Luffy's faces. If you see someone assaulted or killed in cold blood by certain people wearing bubbles around their heads, do not try to confront them. With such a grim message in an appropriate tone, the Straw Hats and company made sure not to forget it. Frankie and Usopp volunteered to watch over the Sunny while refueling the engine. The former somehow made one that runs not on coal or steam but cola. It is amazing but true. Then again, it helped that they had a Sea King, that is Umi, to pop up every now and then. Nero and T-Bone, understandably, wished to stay on deck too. For one of two reasons, that they will be recognized as former government officer and marine respectively and that they wanted to keep up the training routine set up by the captain. Luffy went with Hachin, Cammy, Papug as well as his girlfriends, Nami and Robin, Nijiko, Isa, Chopper and Brook, who wanted to see how the world truly had changed while he was stuck in the Florian Triangle. Kaya went ahead for some shopping for supplies with Alvida, Carol and Grace. Sanji wanted to come with too but was reminded by the men to stick to groceries and being the group's carrier for the bags. The rest of the guys, including the otter that had been missing out, went looking for supplies for the ship and the workshop that Frankie also installed in the ship. The first stop were these little shops that can be found pretty much everywhere on the archipelago. They allow residents and visitors to use special equipment that turn the bubbles into vehicles, for the benefit of easy transportation with pedals and propellers. We will take 3 rentals, 2 large and 1 medium. Luffy requested of the shop owner that looked like someone had caught on another deal he was going to offer but rejected already. That's because, many new to Sabaody don't realize that buying the equipment is a scam. The bubbles are large and hard to pop on ground level because of the environment. If one should try to take one outside, the bubble will burst immediately. That was why they stuck to renting them. Now then, guys, we will be stopping off at a location in the lawless area where one of Hachin's friends live. She runs her own bar where everyone will get ripped off unless they're friends with the Starhead right here. Luffy spoke up and patted Hachin on the shoulder following that last statement. The fishman could only chuckle in a sheepish tone. But another friend lives there too and we need his services to help our ship reach Fishman Island at 10,000 feet below sea level. His company were amazed that there is such a place, especially for the Grand Line. But before they could shove off, Luffy's nerves went on full alarm. Hold it. He spoke with a firm and cautious tone. One that his crewmates recognized to be something that even Luffy will call dangerous. Get these into that alley. We need to get out of sight. Move it. After a hassle, the gang got into the shadows of an alleyway just in time for a crazed man to run throughout the street. He screamed that he escaped one bad fate only to be trapped in another, begging the people nearby with a hostage to save him. Too bad that he never got any further when suddenly he was engulfed in an explosion like that of a bomb. Nevertheless, while there were other screams, the citizens did nothing to address the situation. Especially not when a dog wearing a helmet came up and shamelessly urinated on the burned corpse. Please, Saru, do it somewhere else. That scum will just stink you up. The sound of a woman was heard right before the citizens started to form parallel lines of bowing. They made their way for the figures of absolute power in the world government, the world nobles. The woman appeared as the one that scolded her pooch. She is dressed in a thick white suit with metal-like knobs which supplies her with oxygen to save her sharing the same air as commoners. The collar of her suit has a flower-like pattern with lace at the top. The flower pattern on her suit repeats at the sides of her skirt. Her hair inside the bubble is styled upwards, forming a curl above her head. She wears a veil over the lower half of her face and light orange-tinted shades over her eyes. She also wears heart-shaped earrings. Daddy. This slave was weak and cowardly. I want a new one. Her actions and expression of complete indifference had put selfish and spoiled princesses to shame. Now, I let you play with him if you will return him in good condition. Otherwise, it will look bad on my captain collection. The voice of a man was heard next and soon came another in a similar outfit, meaning that he was also a world noble. He is an older man with a hairstyle that curls upward, which is shared with his children. He has a curly black mustache and a fluffy gray beard, and wears black shades. He wore a thick white suit with metal-like knobs and a bubble over his head to prevent himself from breathing the same air as the commoners. He also wields a walking cane. For this, you can just get a human to start and maybe I will get you a better slave. I don't want a weak one. Give me a giant next. They at least take a good shooting before they whine. The female world noble complained yet still followed the male, which apparently was her father. He just led the way forward with a giant of a man chained like a dog himself yet didn't act out of line. After a short while, Luffy extended a good view. When he saw no one, he signaled the gang to come out. That was too close. I better not let my guard down again. He He muttered to himself and thankfully, no one cared to ask about it. Luffy. Nami let out a yell. Just what were those people? As much as she wanted to curse, there was still a child in the proximity. We need something with more privacy and open space than the alleyway. It was starting to stink too. Luffy responded and his tone said that he will explain in another location. They were able to move everything to a large route taller than the buildings in town. Now then, those were the world nobles. They are also called celestial dragons, so take your pick. They are the worst and they have the navy and the world government at their heels. Papug picked up. The deal is that the world nobles are descendants of 20 kings of an ancient past that came together to form the world government. It was later decreed that the world nobles shall not be harmed nor treated with anything else but luxury and privilege. They can get away with anything from slavery to murder. Why no one ever dares to challenge them is that if one of the world nobles shall be harmed or harassed, the navy retaliates with a fleet to the location, headed by an admiral. Luffy finished with a bang and that successfully scared everyone listening. And if you were wondering, they could send an Aokiji or any of the other admirals as there were still 2 that we haven't encountered yet. Hopefully it will stay that way. Nobody had anything to say. All they could do was try to wrap their heads around the fact that those 2 from before could have sent an admiral after them if they felt like it. Now let's go. We still have a way to go to the place where the old man lives. XXXXX. It didn't take long to take the bubble vehicles out of town and into the lawless area, which was mostly empty and wide space, ideal for ambushes. But the Straw Hats were not scared one bit and felt really assured when the faint sounds of bodies hitting the ground were heard all around. As much as Luffy wanted, it was a bit redundant to try and use his haki on all the crooks and criminals in the area. Soon enough, they came across a building at the base of one of the many enormous trees in Sabaody, one that had a large number, 13, on its bark. It looked like a bar that had a large green sphere on top that had a giant wooden sign which spelled, Shaki's Rip-Off Bar. Here we are. This is the place. Everyone present had something to say about this place, especially Nami and her sister. If I wasn't your girlfriend, I would have cut your head clean off for taking little Isa to a bar. There were nods and mumbles of agreement while the young girl in question had a pout on her face for being treated like a baby. Yes, pretty kitty, I know that this is a bar. But when Shanks came here to visit his old supervisor from the days of the Roger Pirates, he dragged me along. I keep telling him that I was too young to be in a bar until the owner feed me my favorite food. Luffy responded and drooled a bit after that last statement. Sanji can learn a thing or two unless he loses his focuses. That got everyone to nod in agreement while their company wondered if that blonde and black was that bad. He did try to woo Cammy like a stereotypical womanizer. Nevertheless, Hachin finally opened the door and everyone peered in to see a woman holding up a man that was barely conscious along with several badly blooded men on the floor. Obviously, it was a fight and the woman won with clear ease. Shaki is a relatively slim and tall woman with short black hair, with 2 tufts pointing upwards and is always seen smoking a cigarette. She looks very young despite her old age. She typically wears a pink, V-neck t-shirt that exposes her stomach with a black spider on it beneath a black jacket with pink lines running down the sleeves that has a collar with wing-like cuffs. She also wears a yellow beaded necklace, pants that have a giraffe-like pattern, and a belt with a white cardigan tied around it. She also wears white shoes and has painted fingernails. What? We are closed and I am not done with. She froze when she got a better look at her latest customers and practically dropped the dead weight that she was holding. Hachi, is that you? She grew a bright smile when she got a closer look at the octopus fishman that was chuckling. Hello Shaki, yes it's me. I have some friends that need to see the old man about getting to Fishman Island. Is he in? Never mind the small talk. Come on in you lot. Shaki really was acting an almost 180 compared to the poor saps on the ground. Then she saw a certain straw hat wearing boy. Well, aren't you the little shrimp that Tomato Hair dragged in screaming and kicking? You sure are a tasty sight for sure. No one appreciated how the host was staring down Luffy as if he was a delicious steak, and it showed on the captain's face. First, yes I am. Second, I already have a girlfriend. So please, can we see the old man? It was always reliving that Luffy was not the type to even try to be attracted to another girl when he is already in a relationship. Shaki didn't seem to be bothered by it and instead of answering, she just motioned for the gang to come in while the trash was taken out. Once everyone got settled, they got a more pleasant surprise when their host had already prepared their favorite meals. Meat on the stick with a bottle of whiskey for Luffy, cotton candy for both Chopper and Isa, fruit salads complete with tangerines for Nami and Najiko. Brook on the other hand, helped himself to a bowl of beans. Thank you again, Shaki. Luffy grumbled while still eating his meal, but we really need to see the old man. The Navy is going to be onto us soon enough and we need to get on our way ASAP. Shaki just looked relaxed, taking in a smoke while making sure no stray wind will blow it towards the child in question. I won't be in such a hurry, after all, he had been gone for a good 6 months. Once the anchor was dropped, everyone forced their food down with a mighty swallow. What, again? Everyone's eyes were on their captain once more but that didn't cause him to even flinch. What is up that old fart? Did he go off on another money-grubbing scheme again? You, madam, are the luckiest woman in the world to marry a man you can't worry about if it was only 6 months. This time, nobody had anything to say to that. Shaggy just giggled in between smokes, either trying to tease Luffy still or actually feeling complimented. That was when Nami finally spoke. Luffy, she had been lovely-dovely from all the attention and affection ever since she started her close relationship with her captain, but she hadn't lost her touch of authority yet. At least she wasn't thinking of sending Luffy to a couch for the night. Just who is this old man that we are supposed to meet? And what do you mean, only 6 months? His name is Silver's Raleigh, known in his prime as the Dark King. However, despite his old age, he is still far more powerful than anyone here on Sabaody. Luffy responded and Shaggy let out a chuckle to grab everyone's attention. That's true. He is 100 times stronger than any of you kids. She took a long smoke while seeing the looks of awe and disbelief on the Straw Hats. And speaking of which, Shaggy turned and directed everyone's attention to their captain facing the open door. He then took out what appears to be a pair of oversized sake bottles. Never mind, you clearly got the picture. With another saucy smile on her face, it's anyone's guess what she and Luffy had in mind, but it won't be long to find out. XXXXX elsewhere in Sabaody, inside a certain restaurant, the citizens are trying their best to enjoy their meals while ignoring the elephant in the dining room. There were 2 groups huddled their own tables, and while one was quiet and sophisticated, the other was not. And it showed when a gang leader placed his fork on the table while using his nap like a trained gentleman. Nevertheless, he was not happy. That woman over there has the worst manners, and it's killing my appetite. One of you tell her to keep it down. This man is Capone, gang, Big, a pirate captain in the style of a mafia gang. Big is a short man with a stocky build whose appearance is somewhat similar to that of a mafia boss. He sports an oiled-up and slicked-back hairstyle befitting that of a crime don. His facial features have a very stern look to them, further accentuated by his rather sharp but hooking beak-like nose. He also has 5 o'clock stubble on his upper lip. He wears a black and white pinstriped attire, complete with a green scarf around his neck, with the excess tucked inside the suit. He wears rings on all 10 digits with precious gems embedded. As for his personal effects, he has a pirate captain's coat with red and gold trimming and a fedora hat. But instead of following his orders, one of his men got close with a worried expression. "Godfather, we must not cause trouble here. The Marines might find us," and Big only moved his eyes in disgust that his order was not obeyed and grabbed that same fork but in a reverse hold, with the intent to stab something, only for his arm to be halted. Now, that's no way to treat your men, he is right, you know." Big turned to face a certain pirate in a captain's cloak with a katana and rapier while wearing a Mugiwara, straw hat. Big shouted in a fit of anger and forced his arm out of its grasp. His men nearby were on guard, with some showing a hint of fear on their faces. "What the hell do you think you are? Stepping in on my meal? I have one annoyance already." "Don't be such a baby, if you wanted her to be quiet then just say so." Luffy responded while walking away without a care in the world, only to stop at the same table that Bonnie was still gorging on the plates by the dozen. "Now pardon me, madam," the woman shrieked when the tablecloth was directly pulled from under her rear, causing all those dirty dishes to land around her. "I must ask that you either get a room for your meal or get it all to go. Some of us are losing our appetites because of your rudeness, Jewelry Bonnie." This was the unfortunate loud and rude customer that had bothered the other customers, especially Big. She was Jewelry, Big Eater, Bonnie, a notorious glutton that never seemed to show any weight gain despite eating enough food to fill a few banquets. Bonnie typically appears to be a slim, curvaceous young woman, with long light pink hair and brown eyes. Her outfit consists of a white low-cut tank top that exposes both her midriff and cleavage, along with a pair of orange and black striped buckled shorts with long, thin suspenders. She also wears black high-heeled boots which reach up to her calves, with large laces coming from the openings, and a pair of hot pink and dark red stockings with a yellow sun-like motif on them. The hat she wears is a green furazirka with a light green lining. She has an anti-eyebrow below her right eye, bright red lipstick on her lips, and is sometimes seen wearing a brown fur jacket. Now, most of the customers saw what happened, and while they looked afraid of the big guns talking, including the crew members, only Big had a smirk on his face. He won't say it, but he did appreciate someone silencing the foul woman with her terrible table manners, and also did with style. But of course, someone was not happy about the development. Mugiwara. Bonnie finally got to her feet, not even bruised from her fall. "Just what the hell do you think you are to ruin my meal? I don't even care that you replaced Crocodile as a shichibuki." Luffy just ignored her yelling to try and sort out that same tablecloth on his arm, as if a waiter cleaning up. "Oh, that is old news. I quitted." Bonnie had 100 things to scream about but swallowed them all when she heard that. Big tried to get back to his food but stopped in the middle of eating when he heard that too. This was the first time he heard it too. "Is that true?" A new voice was heard, one that was masculine and calm and bit refined but also anxious too. But the cards didn't tell that. Oh. Everyone to see another man with a pirate gang in company while he was on the floor trying to collect the tarot cards that he accidentally spilled. Luffy walked over and helped collect the rest of the cards. These cards are an art made by man, so it is not perfect. It can be taught, learned, refined, but it cannot be perfected. So, don't let it stress you out. Basil Hawkins. Hawkins is a tall man, with black triangle symbols on his eyebrows, red eyes, and golden hair that reaches down to his hips. He also has a black cross tattooed at the base of his throat that is at the front of his neck. His attire includes a pure white coat with a ruffled neckline and sleeves. He also wears purple trousers tucked inside black boots with white laces on them and a dark ornament made of fur circling the lower part of his torso, with a lighter shade in the middle of it. He also has a pink sash tied around his waist, with a piece of jewelry hanging from it. Hawkins also wears dark gloves, and an armor-like armlet can be seen on his left arm around his left biceps, which also extends to cover his left shoulder. On his right hip he carries a sword with an elaborate pommel that resembles a voodoo doll. But why? Why would you do something so foolish? Hawkins was collecting himself, slowly but surely returning to the same stoic look of a tarot card reader. You will become just another criminal. Like you three? Luffy intervened with a smooth tone that silenced the room once again. Neither Hawkins nor the pair of pirate gangs from earlier had anything to say. They all saw the confident look on the straw hat wearing pirate that he did not regret his decision to quit. But the silence was broken with a loud sound that followed a bad shaking of the building. More and more trouble today, what a pain. XXXXX on the other side of the restaurant, a section that contained a bar connected to the dining room. A wall was taken down and a figure did an impressive somersault and landed on its feet like a cat. Well? Are you convinced on my strength yet? I do have all day, kid. You just barged in on a good meal just for that. You must have a death wish. This is you Stas, Captain Kidd. A problem child at best and a hardcore criminal at worst. Kidd is a tall, muscular man with light skin and bright red hair, resembling flames. His nose has a particular shape, being quite pointed and having little protrusions on both sides. He has dark reddish-purple colored lips and fingernails, red, orange eyes and no eyebrows. He dresses in an extravagant attire consisting of black and yellow lizard print pants with a red fringe, motorcycle boots, and a blue sash under a green belt fastened by a large circular buckle with a four-leaf clover-like pattern in the middle. He also has a slim bandolier, also with minuscule bolts that go diagonally over his right shoulder then ties to his waist, where he keeps a dagger with a Japanese-style hilt and what appears to be a flintlock gun. He also has gold bangles around both wrists. He wears a pair of studded, square-shaped goggles on his forehead, and a large fur captain's coat over his bare muscular torso. The dark brown coat is adorned with spikes on its shoulders lined in maroon. The collar of the coat is extremely flared and wide. He wears this coat with his right arm in its sleeve and his left arm under the coat itself. As for the figure that challenged him, his name is Scratchman, Roar of the Sea, Apu. Being of the long-arm tribe from the Grand Line, one of Apu's distinguishing traits is his incredibly long arms. Each of these long arms possesses 2 elbow joints instead of just one, making them much longer than a normal person. Apu also has a rather broad chest cavity. Apu's lower jaw is also somewhat wider than the upper half of his face. Besides these, his most distinguishing attributes are his unique physical characteristics and the objects at which are music-themed or related. His teeth have a unique look to them as they resemble piano keys. His fighting stance is also music-themed as he appears like he's moving his hands in the same way a DJ would move theirs when mixing music on turntables. He wears a set of orange headphones with his name on either side over his ears and hairstyle similar to Jabra's, where the hair on his scalp has been pulled tightly so that his roots resemble lightning patterns. A red Chinese garb with a Jolly Roger, at the center of a large flower-like print splayed across the chest area, as well as on his back. Apu also has a yellow scarf around his waist. He also has what seems to be the design of a green rose sewed on front of his left shoulder. I will say you both do. Both Kidd and Apu froze when a third voice entered the proximity. They turned to see a certain pirate in a straw hat leaning casually on a pillar outside the building. After all, the Navy is getting more active these days. And we are practically next door to Marineford, headquarters of the Navy itself. Luffy, tired to throw caution in the wind but of course, that flew over their heads. Mugiwara. You think that a cowardly piece of shit that serves the government can tell us what to do? Kidd didn't miss a K to make his impression while Apu couldn't get his words out. Nevertheless, the problem child of a pirate was making any sailor feel ashamed with his potty mouth until I quitted the Shichibuki. That definitely silenced the foul-mouthed kid. And no, I didn't do it to impress you or anyone. I didn't even join them on my accord. They practically demanded that I take Crocodile's place so they can save their asses. All I asked was they follow a few simple conditions and they went against their word. So, I quit. At the same time, in yet another location, there was a brawl. Crowds formed to see a figure wearing a mask and using dual blades that seemed attached to armbands on both arms. Matching blows with a much larger man in a robe waving around a massive object that looked like an iron pillar. The first one was Simple, named Killer, and he happened to be a ruthless fighter that happened to serve a certain foul-mouthed captain. Killer is a tall, muscular man. He has long wild blonde hair that reaches down to his thighs. He wears a plain, white and light blue striped full head helmet with many rows of holes in it, and what look like modern headphones on both sides. He also wears a black shirt with white polka dots and an open collar that shows his chest, with blue writing chaps over his pants. Additionally, Killer has a red sash around his waist. And the large man that Killer was dueling with was named Mad Monk Uroge. Uroge is abundant in both height and width. His face somewhat resembles a smiling totem mask, as he is nearly always seen grinning, even when he is unhappy. Apart from his smile, he also has what appears to be a stitched-up scar vertically descending over, and falling short just above his left eye. On his chin he has a prominent, jet black, and scruffy beard that extends upwards to the sides of his jaw and then converges with his equally dark sideburns. He seems to sport the short and clean-cut sort of hairstyle generally sported by monks. He also has black tattoos going down his shoulders that somewhat resemble fire. He dresses in robes, which includes the white full-bodied garment with severed sleeves, that exposes tattoos patterned like flames on both biceps. He wears a pair of gold earrings, black gloves and a rather large red bead necklace. He also has a pair of large wings growing out from the middle of his back. "You sure a swift and annoying little pest, aren't you?" Uroge commented while still swinging around his giant weapon whenever Killer strike at him with his dual blades. "Let's see you keep this up." Both fighters reeling in for a big one. They were instead intercepted by a third fighter that blocked both blows. Save your excitement for the new world. This was a unique pirate, as he was once a rear Navy admiral before turning to privacy for confidential reasons. His is Red Flag X Drake. Drake is a tall, lean, and muscular man who wears what appears to be a combination of a white plumed cocked hat with his Jolly Roger on the side and a mask over his eyes. Underneath this headgear, Drake's hair is reddish-brown, with brush-like sideburns. On his broad chin he has an X, and on his chest and upper body he also has another large X. He wears armor on his relatively thin legs and arms, consisting of knee-high boots and gloves that go up past his elbows, respectively. The openings to both the gloves and the boots are also secured by the armor, which is rounded for the gloves and a sharp maple leaf pattern for the boots at the front of his knees. On the rest of his body he wears leather pants and a leather shirt. A belt with a large ornately designed circular belt buckle secures Drake's pants as well as his sword and axe to his waist. He also wears a black cape, which, from the inside, is crimson-colored, with a white fur lining around the neck. "Ah, I wanted to see some blood." A more casual than cautious voice was heard and the three fighters turned to see yet another big name. This was Trafalgar Law, the Surgeon of Death. Law is a slim man of a relatively tall height. He has faint shadows right under his yellow eyes, and his face is usually seen with a smirk. He wears a northern-style fur hat, which is white and has a spotted pattern along the bottom and the bill. He has short dark hair, a majority of which is obscured by his hat, save for his sideburns and small goatee. He has many tribal-style tattoos on his arms. On both of his hands are letters spelled as DEATH tattooed in black on each of the back of his fingers. He also has a black cross on the back of both of his hands. On his chest, he has a tribal-style heart tattoo with his Jolly Roger on it. He has simpler heart tattoo on his shoulders and his Jolly Roger tattooed on his back. He is seen wearing a yellow hoodie with black sleeves and black hood. The hoodie has his Jolly Roger printed on the front of the chest area in dark ink, and he keeps the sleeves rolled up. Law wears a northern-style fur hat that has a rim running all around it. It is white in color, and has a black dot pattern along the rim and lower areas of the hat. Law also sports a pair of jeans with odd dots on both the knee and ankle areas, similar to the ones on his hat, but darker in color. He sports a pair of dark, pointed shoes. He has a pair of small earrings on each ear. "Don't worry, because you all will." A familiar voice got everyone's attention this time. They immediately recognized him for the certain hat on his head as Mugiwara. It was safe to say that these rookies are getting predictable a bit in their response. "Are you here to bring us in like the government dog you are?" "Nope, and I am not a dog," Luffy said in a deadpan. "Not anymore, I quitted." This shocked everyone within hearing range. Even the stoic likes of Law showed it in his expression, and the ever-smiling Uroge grew a frown. "Before you guys ask, I never intended to be a dog to the government, but it was a chance to do something that would have benefited them and us too, but they went back on their word. And I'd rather not stay and be another dog for them to send out on the battlefields." Battlefields. This was spoken with unison, which was kind of freaky. It was clear that this was not practiced before. Luffy nodded, and his grim look was so bad that everyone felt it in the air. Yes, something that the world hadn't seen since Roger had been executed, starting the golden age of piracy. Back at the bar and restaurant building, after a moment of silence, Kid started to laugh. He found this development rather amusing instead of annoying. Huh? Still the unpredictable pain in everyone's ass, I see, and what brings a guy that took his time in the clouds back down to the ground? Kid was now interested more than anything, and no one knew just how ironic he spoke just now. I am Harold, that war looms over the horizon, and whatever or not you want to fight, the world will change again. Luffy moved from leaning to standing and addressed with all his attention to whomever was in hearing range with a deathly grim tone. It has been in the works long before any of us had been born, and I gave my all to slow it down, but war is inevitable. My only question is this. Are you ready for it? XXXXX. And while all of this was happening, here it is, as ugly as I remember it. The actual Luffy arrived at a rundown building deep in the lawless areas of Sabaody. Just looking at it makes me want to hurl. Let's get this over with already. Rather than use the front door, Luffy was only interested in the stock in the back, and of course. Hold it, punk, authorized personnel only. A pair of guards were watching over the door and were decently smart enough to tell that Luffy was not a staff member. What are you doing here? I am here to take home someone that you will be happier without, so if you can step aside, I will not cause you or your boss any trouble. Luffy was not in the mood to joke around. He wanted to leave already. Yeah right. The other guard shouted with his weapon aimed at Luffy like the pirate was a wild stray. These slaves are essential to their building's business, and you are not going to ruin it for us. All I want is a certain old man with a beard and a love of booze, then I am out of here. Is that too much to ask for? Luffy tried to be civil, yet it was looking hopeless. But fine, if you won't let me in. The guards readied themselves when Luffy reached for Raleigh, Don Pain, and took a swipe. When it looked like a fluke, the guards were about to laugh at it until, look up you idiots. Luffy cut them off with a deadpan tone. When the guards did, they nearly shitted their pants. Luffy's swipe of his katana had actually cut off the roof of the auction building, but also the massive tree next to it. Both the roofing and the tree fell to Luffy's right with a mighty thud that was followed by the definite screams of fear and alarm. You might want to attend to that before your boss sells you to next. Luffy said more casually and smirked when the guards ran without their weapons at hand. With no one or nothing else guarding the door, Luffy let himself in with a mighty kick that sent the door flying inside off its hinges and lock. The room inside was a dark and cold room with 2 large cells to contain the slaves before being presented for auction. Relax, I am not here to harm any of you. I am here for an old man in a discarded cloak with a beer flask in hand. And I know that he is here. With that said, the slaves had no idea what Luffy wanted with just one of them, but something had told them to point out who the pirate captain was looking for. Or else, they might go out like that door just then. And every arm pointed towards a shadowed figure just relaxing in a corner, not even budging to all the racket until he spoke. Is that you, little Luffy? I knew that if the room suddenly smelled like fresh sake after being held up for days on an empty bottle, my savior will come. Luffy was not amused and spoke with a sold tone while facing him through the bars. Hello again, First Mate Raleigh. Mugiwara. It was safe to say that these rookies are getting predictable a bit in their response. Are you here to bring us in like the government dog you are? Nope, and I am not a dog. Luffy said in a deadpan. Not anymore, I quitted. This shocked everyone within hearing range. Even the stoic likes of Law showed it in his expression, and the ever-smiling Yoro grew a frown. Before you guys ask, I never intended to be a dog to the government, but it was a chance to do something that would have benefited them and us too, but they went back on their word. And I'd rather not stay and be another dog for them to send out on the battlefields. Battlefields. This was spoken with unison, which was kind of freaky. It was clear that this was not practiced before. Luffy nodded, and his grim look was so bad that everyone felt it in the air. Yes, something that the world hadn't seen since Roger had been executed, starting the golden age of piracy. Back at the bar and restaurant building, after a moment of silence, Kid started to laugh. He found this development rather amusing instead of annoying. Huh? Still the unpredictable pain in everyone's ass, I see, and what brings a guy that took his time in the clouds back down to the ground? Kid was now interested more than anything, and no one knew just how ironic he spoke just now. I am here to announce to you all that war looms over the horizon, and whatever or not you want to fight, the world will change again. Luffy moved from leaning to standing and addressed with all his attention to whomever was in hearing range with a deathly grim tone. It has been in the works long before any of us had been born, and I gave my all to slow it down, but war is inevitable. My only question is this. Are you ready for it? XXXXX. All I want is a certain old man with a beard and a love of booze, then I am out of here. Is that too much to ask for? Luffy tried to be civil, yet it was looking hopeless. But fine, if you won't let me in. The guards readied themselves when Luffy reached for Raleigh, Don Pain, and took a swipe. When it looked like a fluke, the guards were about to laugh at it until, look up you idiots. Luffy cut them off with a deadpan tone. When the guards did, they nearly shitted their pants. Luffy's swipe of his katana had actually cut off the roof of the auction building, but also the massive tree next to it. Both the roofing and the tree fell to Luffy's right with a mighty thud that was followed by the definite screams of fear and alarm. "You might want to attend to that before your boss sells you to next," Luffy said more casually and smirked when the guards ran without their weapons at hand. With no one or nothing else guarding the door, Luffy let himself in with a mighty kick that sent the door flying inside off its hinges and lock. The room inside was a dark and cold room with 2 large cells to contain the slaves before being presented for auction. "Relax, I am not here to harm any of you. I am here for an old man in a discarded cloak with a beer flask in hand. And I know that he is here." With that said, the slaves had no idea what Luffy wanted with just one of them, but something had told them to point out who the pirate captain was looking for. Or else, they might go out like that door just then. And every arm pointed towards a shadowed figure just relaxing in a corner, not even budging to all the racket until he spoke. "Is that you, little Luffy? I knew that if the room suddenly smelled like fresh sake after being held up for days on an empty bottle, my savior will come." Luffy was not amused and spoke with a sold tone while facing him through the bars. "Hello again, first mate Raleigh. Ha, I haven't been anyone's first mate in over 20 years. Don't make this old man feel any older, ha ha ha." Raleigh responded with a hearty laugh while the other prisoners were either shocked or confused. The former because they actually recognized the name, Raleigh, while the others didn't. Luffy, on the other hand, was not amused. Yeah. Look, your wife is tired of waiting 6 whole months since you got caught and we are in a hurry. If you don't move your wrinkly old ass, I will do it." Then something caught his eye, hold that thought. The pirate captain moved as if he owned the place, entered the other, undamaged door and came back as swiftly as he exited. In his hands was something metallic and gave off a jigging sound that the slaves were more than happy to hear. It was the keys to the cages and cuffs. Luffy then snapped the keychain half, dividing the number of keys perfectly in half and threw each half into the large cages, through the metal bars. "Take your time and don't be greedy, those keys are not going anywhere." And while the slaves were grasping for the keys as if they were air bubbles underwater, Luffy walked right up to Raleigh, still smiling like a trickster caught in the act. Now come on, in a drastic switch of circumstances, the old man was being pulled by the ear by the young one. Funny thing was that, instead of muttering pain, Raleigh just chuckled heartily. Somehow, he found this to be more amusing than painful. XXXXX Meanwhile, back at the bar and restaurant. "You got a lot of nerves, telling me to be careful." Kid was still grinning like a hyena, but anyone could pick up the irritation in his tone. He truly was the unruly and rowdy type, hates to be bossed around even by for the slightest of demands. The crowds gasped when the pirate captain himself grasped Luffy by the collar, lifting the latter into the air. "Nobody tells me what to do, unless they are ready to die. Keep talking like that, and you will die, very soon and very painful at that." Luffy didn't even struggle when Kid pulled at his collar, and once he spoke that retort, a horrible and nauseous stench filled the entire proximity. Kid even yelped like a wild animal in a bear trap, dropping what used to be Luffy onto the ground where the stinky blob burned at the grass. And that same time, there is a terrible storm coming that will shake the world once the sky clears. If you value your safety, I suggest take shelter or else watch from a safe distance. The other, Luffy, was delivering the same warning but in another sense. Not that the rookies seemed to be intimidated. Law, of course, was not going to take it too well. "Do you want to die yourself? Because we are not garden variety pirates." If the Grand Line hadn't killed us yet then, Law started off polite until he placed his hand on Luffy's shoulder with a tight grip, only for another grip to seize the first. "You, all of you, have not seen what the Grand Line can do to scare you. I promise you, the worst has yet to come. And you all will know once war comes." Luffy spoke with a threat underlying his tone until the same stench invaded the air and was followed by a man's painful shriek. Law seized back his hand just in time for his aggressor to dissolve on the spot, into yet another puddle of smelly and sizzling goo. And despite this happening in 2 separate locations, a good distance apart, those words of warning and caution echoed off the massive trees that make up the mangroves. Whoever paid heed will soon enough see what the world will come to, and everyone else will also feel the changes as well. XXXXX Back to Luffy and old man Raleigh, "You can stop with the ear. I can still walk on my own." The man with the silver hair pointed out without a hint of frustration and still no pain. Very impressive considering his old body was being dragged along like a heavy sack of potatoes. Just ask the trail of disrupted grass behind them. "Why, so, you can wander off and disappear for another 6 months? We have no time for games, old man." Luffy responded, feeling like the old man dealing with a runaway that won't cooperate. "Besides, you ought to pull me by the ear after that stunt I did out of impulse and impatience. Now the Navy will be on our asses for sure, and another thing." Luffy suddenly stops and releases his hold on Raleigh, causing the latter to bump and don't hurt, just annoy the old man a bit. Before he could ask what changed the young man's mind, it was clear to behold. "Fuck me sideways into the moon," Luffy mumbled to himself with dismay and disbelief. In front of both of them, with a crowd surrounding the area, was a man in a suit lined with a bubble helmet. He has the same hairstyle as the two from before. He has a wide, obese face and what appears to be stubble around his thick-lipped mouth. He has snot hanging from one of his nostrils. The truth is, he is the brother to the woman and son to the man that made a spectacle about an escaped slave whose collar killed him. And, at that point of eyes meeting, he saw an attractive woman and had just openly declared her as her bride, despite the protests about her already being engaged, with the fiancé even joining her at the spot. His name is World Dragon Carlos. You. And now, Carlos screamed like the overgrown man-child that he is. What the hell are you doing here? We ordered you killed. You were supposed to be dead. We are as tough as the cockroaches you made us to be, you big baby. Luffy got out of his stupor and shocked the witnesses to how disrespectable he was to a world noble. Now you be a good big baby and forget about that nurse. Get rid of that man you had been beating all day and walk away. Luffy looked like dead meat standing right there until he said, or else I can tell all to hear about the reject, do. Wait, Carlos cried out, which got everyone's eyes on him again. Then the large spoiled brat turned to the same woman he demanded to come with him. You lazy slugs, get out of my sight now. The woman and her fiancé were part of a team of nurses with an injured patient until they crossed Carlos's path. They ran like the ants, glad to be let off the hook. Then Carlos turned to a sad shell of a human that had to carry the large, fat world noble for what looks to be hours. You guys, get rid of this thing and get me a better slave to ride next. I hate the smell already. Two men in black with matching glasses got to work without a word. Now get me to the slave house. I am late already and it's all you guys' fault. I will get daddy to sell you for good. Also, without a word, two men in black helped Carlos out of the proximity area. It took a while to move that man with all his fat and the large suit, but the crowds couldn't even breathe, fearing for the wrath of the world nobles. Raleigh, however, looked amused. Well, that was not something I had ever seen as a pirate. This new generation sure has its own moments. Turning to Luffy, the pirate captain merely glared at him as if Darren did not cooperate even after all that. He just raises his hands to settle down the young man. Don't worry. I'm letting the new kid in town lead to the way. XXXXX in another shopping district. We made quite the haul, girls. Alvida yelled out like a big sister after a successful shopping trip, and that was just about the case. And these bubbles rock too. Aside from the loud voice, the other girls agreed. Apparently, here on Sabaody, the special bubbles can be used more than vehicles. They can be used to carry supplies as if they were carnival balloons. Kaya, of course, had bought several medicine bottles and medical tools along a few more medicine books. She got most of it for her training as well as restocking the medical closets for Chopper's office. Speaking of whom, the little reindeer was for all intents and purposes to be a child that is also a doctor, but he turned out to be an effective supervisor and teacher. Or is it because Luffy gives a pat on the head to the little doctor when the latter does a good job? Carol and Grace had been hanging out a lot since they were plucked off Little Garden ages ago. They decided to spice things up by buying things for the other for a change. Nevertheless, the results can't be denied. For Carol, several cookbooks on desserts but mostly chocolate brewing along with several ingredients to try out later. For Grace, several new paintbrushes with color tubes along with a few artist books. It's safe to say that they are the closest to being sisters as strangers can be. They practically can read each other's minds. As for Alvida, she preferred more snacks than supplies. Not that she had to worry about gaining extra fat. It all just slides off. The rest of her allowance was spent on a couple of barbells, a makeup kit and even a polishing kit for her trusty mace. Then there was, and you quit the whining, Blondie. Captain ordered to get our groceries, not ogle us. The other girls just shook their heads at Alvida, who yelled at a tired and crumpling Sanji, carrying over half a dozen bags filled the brim with food items. Now, he is carrying them in his arms and not the bubbles because he still couldn't resist trying to get a good look at the ladies. The passers-by just think the weight is a solid punishment for the lack of self-control. However, that all changed when this was heard. I am serious, that kid scared off that world noble. That scream got everyone's attention, and before anyone could wave it off as a lie, that same guy was joined a woman with the same look on her face. Truly, a man and an older man appeared in the way of the world noble and ordered him to leave. And the world noble did exactly what that man with a straw hat said. That got the straw hats present raised their eyebrows at how their captain had caused another bout of trouble and wondered what the big deal was. But not for much longer. That kid is going to doom us all. The other world nobles will call in a Navy admiral for this outrage. No one will be safe here once an admiral comes to kill that kid in a straw hat. An elder who heard it from his stall walked out with his cane and ranted up a storm, with an audience to boot. As for the straw hats, they all cancelled any more shopping plans and hurried over to the Grand King's brew. Elsewhere, and just when I had seen it all, Kuro mused in company of Frank, Jin and Yokogao the otter. The former had gathered a few new books to read, a kit to keep his claws sharp and, tell no one, a new glasses case with a spare set inside. He is still a bit guilty about how he acted ages ago in the East Blue. They let a walking furball walk up and the former pirate captain had to dodge a swipe from a sharp shell that broke his muse. And I keep saying, welcome to the Grand Line. Jin responded and calmed down Yokogao with a genuine rub on the head. The otter loved those but was gruff about being petted more than necessary. He refused to be reduced to be a house pet. I guess that animals acting a lot like humans are just rare, not unbelievable. Yet, before anyone else could comment, everyone, we are in deep shit this time. A world noble has been harassed in public. That got the Straw Hats' attention and they were wondering why everyone was starting to panic until they got an answer. That damn straw hat wearing bastard has gotten a Marine Admiral on our asses. I hope that he and his gang get caught before we get killed in the crossfires. That was the final nail in the coffin that confirmed things were about to go to hot shit. The Straw Hats hurried back to the ship. Overall, once Luffy and his company returned to the Grand King's brew, a major headache is coming to the Straw Hat wearing captain. XXXXX. Eventually, Luffy and Raleigh had finally arrived at Shaki's ripoff bar. Thankfully, they didn't encounter any more trouble after that incident with St. Carlos. And somehow, that did not make them feel any safer. Both of them felt something angry and waiting on the other side of the door. Once the sound of a door creaking open was heard, it was followed by a "What in the living hell?" Luffy could only smile sheepishly while catching his hat falling back in the outburst. We have been hearing about a world noble being assaulted in broad daylight and now everyone is panicking about a freaking Marine Admiral coming here. Nami led the charge against her boyfriend and while everyone's complaints were soon drowned and unable to be, her room was flooded with heavy pressure. "I have taught you all better than that," Luffy said in a solid stern tone. "What you heard were witnesses going overboard and spreading rumors like wildfire. If there was a Marine Admiral heading this way, you all would have picked it up by now." The pressure was uplifted but not Luffy's expression of annoyance and slight disappointment. "Now, like you trained, stretch your senses towards the sea around Sabaody. Are there any signatures like that of a wild beast packed into a small package? Remember what you picked up at the Long Islands back then." The Straw Hats knew that Luffy was not in the mood for nonsense, did as ordered. They let out their anger and focuses on their haki. Soon enough, they could feel the signatures on the archipelago, the next was the surrounding waters. And there were no sets of signatures that could be marine ships were sensed near the ports. However, there was this outline, faint but strong, that worried them. "That's better. You caught the edge of an aura that could only belong to a Marine Admiral," Luffy responded. "And given how far the source is, we still have a good hour to get ready for them. If they are taking their time, we have 2 hours actually, so let's have one last meal and drink before the cannons start firing. Besides, Raleigh has a lot to tell you all." Sitting on a stool without a care in the world, casually taking a glass of whiskey with a large ice cube, about Roger. Luffy finished with a large sip that sealed the deal. "What in the living hell?" Luffy could only smile sheepishly while catching his hat falling back in the outburst. "We have been hearing about a world noble being assaulted in broad daylight and now everyone is panicking about a freaking Marine Admiral coming here." Nami led the charge against her boyfriend and while everyone's complaints were soon drowned and unable to be understood, the entire room was flooded with heavy pressure. "I have taught you all better than that," Luffy said in a solid stern tone. "What you heard were witnesses going overboard and spreading rumors like wildfire. If there was a Marine Admiral heading this way, you all would have picked it up by now." The pressure was uplifted but not Luffy's expression of annoyance and slight disappointment. "Now, like you trained, stretch your senses towards the sea around Sabaody. Are there any signatures like that of a wild beast packed into a small package? Remember what you picked up at the Long Islands back then." The Straw Hats knew that Luffy was not in the mood for nonsense, did as ordered. They let out their anger and focuses on their haki. Soon enough, they could feel the signatures on the archipelago, the next was the surrounding waters. And there were no sets of signatures that could be marine ships were sensed near the ports. However, there was this outline, faint but strong, that worried them. "That's better. You caught the edge of an aura that could only belong to a Marine Admiral," Luffy responded. "And given how far the source is, we still have a good hour to get ready for them. If they are taking their time, we have 2 hours actually, so let's have one last meal and drink before the cannons start firing. Besides, Raleigh has a lot to tell you all." Sitting on a stool without a care in the world, casually taking a glass of whiskey with a large ice cube, about Roger. Luffy finished with a large sip that sealed the deal. "Seriously? You sailed with the Pirate King?" That was the general response in the pub. Everyone was facing away from their food and drinks to focus on the old man who was trying to enjoy a drink on behalf of the owner of the place. After taking in a strong gulp, Raleigh let out a sign only an old man or an aged grandfather could do. "I did more than sail with Roger. In fact, I was his first mate." To him, it was all reminiscing as he took a bottle to refill his drink. Most of the Straw Hats were gritting their teeth to hide how shocked they were. After everything they had been through and all they learned about the Grand Line, being surprised has gotten old. "Now I am just an old man trying to make the most of his retirement. That is, until a certain boy with red hair dragged in another boy that stretched like rubber into this bar. They won't leave me alone until I gave that second kid what I gave the first." "You also trained Luffy-kun?" Robin walked up and asked. "Then you must have told him about what is it, Wraithel?" Laugh Tail. Luffy interrupted and got everyone to look at him. We called it Wraithel at the start of our journey, but Roger called it Laugh Tail instead. So, if you still want to call it Wraithel, go for it. I personally think Laugh Tail is an oddly more suitable name, for some reason. 1. Nobody had anything to say about that, but Robin was not backing down just yet. Anyways, is it there? The Rio poneglyph, that all the poneglyphs in the world originated? Raleigh just stared at the archaeologist while taking another gulp of his drink. I am not asking where it is. I just want to hear from the man who must have found it. Is it real? You asking an old man of something that the world will burn to keep quiet. You really have been rubbed on by your captain. Raleigh responded, as if you scold Robin for asking such a thing. Instead, yes. That single word almost froze time itself. Yes, what you seek is real. Whether you find it or not will be up to how strong is your commitment to your dream and how ready you are for the reality. That is all I am going to tell you. And that is more than enough, Raleigh-san. Robin spoke sincerely, feeling her heart flutter with relief and hope. She walked up to where Luffy was sitting and gave him a sudden hug along his neckline. Thank you, Luffy-kun. She muttered with a strong kiss to the cheek. This made the youngest Straw Hats gag again while the others weren't fazed. Their hosts on the other hand, missed their younger days chasing after love. Anyhow, yes, I did train your captain for a short period. It was still mostly that red-haired kid Shanks. Seriously, he forgot who kept him in line along with that kid with a red-nosed buggy. Raleigh picked up and noticed that there was teeth gritting. I guess that you know who I am talking about. Still can't believe that weakling was on the same boat as the Pirate King. This was the general response and Raleigh only chuckled at their disbelief. Now that we can stay on topic, I gave your captain the same roundabout as those brats. Even now, I wonder why I agreed to break in yet another snot-nosed brat. But then I remember what that red-haired brat said to me. Raleigh continued with a breather to add in on the suspense. He said that your captain actually has a lot in common with Roger. It is almost like my old captain got reborn, whether you kids believe that stuff or not. I don't know about my crew, but I am not Roger. Before anyone could respond, Luffy did. And I want to make something clear that I will hate to repeat. That was the same tone that meant it, so everyone gave Luffy their undivided attention. Roger was a man who started off like the rest of us, a nobody and a nameless rookie. One that happened to have quite the spirit and said the darndest things, that he was going to run the world upside down. No one took him seriously, but he couldn't care less. He had ambitions that helped him assemble a loyal crew that followed him to the pirates' graveyard. Raleigh was fascinated by this and wanted to hear more. Everyone who knew him when he first left his home ocean, the East Blue, thought that he was going to die within a week of entering the Grand Line until they heard about him becoming more and more of a powerful pirate and a serious threat to the Navy. Luffy continued. Eventually, he made it past the other half of the Red Line, into the New World, where he wreaked havoc and mayhem wherever he went. It wasn't until he was told that his lifespan has been reduced to only a year left that he wanted to see how far he could go. He made it to the final island, found a great treasure there, and soon enough, was called the Pirate King by the Navy. Taking a break to catch his breath and enjoy another drink, Luffy paused before finishing his statement. I intend to follow his footsteps but pave my own path. I wish to find the island too and see whether the One Piece is real or not. And after I do make it to the end of the Grand Line, the whole world will be the next big adventure. After all, Luffy turned to face his crewmates. When your dream is fulfilled, you get to help your friends do the same. That's why I became a pirate, my own pirate. Freedom to whatever I please with the best people in the world is greater than any treasure. And just like that, the room lit up not by a candle's light but the expression on the face of one Monkey D. Luffy. It spread to everyone, warming their hearts and couldn't keep the smile from growing on their faces. They did not need any words to agree with their mature yet big-hearted captain. And yet they knew that they will need all the confidence they need once the Navy sends in an admiral on the call of the world noble. XXXXX exactly an hour later, at the ports. Hey, what's that? A fisherman was sorting the catch with a few others until his eyes strayed to the sea. There was something on the horizon that he couldn't make out. Guys, take a look. The other fishermen and every other person within hearing range wanted to see what the fuss was about when they saw it too. And their curiosity kept them staring off rather than returning T-moment of staring and waiting. Their eyes widened with fear and shock. Those were ships, and not just any ships, those were Navy battleships. The Marines are here. The fishermen and everyone else on the docks screamed to the high heaven, dropped what they were doing and fled. They ran and screamed of the dangers that have arrived. In just minutes, word had spread throughout the archipelago and everyone is spooked. Despite being close to the Navy headquarters, the native residents rarely see any Marines, and that is the impression that has convinced pirates that they will be safe in reading for the New World. This is why almost every pirate on the archipelago is getting ready to hide or flee. Those that did stay, for whatever reason, took out a pair of binoculars to see who was on the ship. There was someone standing on the nose of the ship leading the fleet. However, they only got a glimpse when the Marines started firing on the port, and yet a figure was spotted, riding one of the cannonballs. Hello? Hello? I am here, so where's the trouble? A deep man's voice was heard with all the destruction. Apparently, this guy was cool about making that killer entrance and is now trying to speak to something on his wrist. I ought to get this fixed later, but I never do get anything done when I am not in the mood. Believe it or not, this is one of the 3 Marine Admirals. His name is Borsalino, better known by his alias as Kizaru. Kizaru is an incredibly tall man, roughly the same size as Aokiji. Kizaru is a middle-aged man with a moderate number of wrinkles on his face, black hair, and a very thin beard. His standard outfit consists of a yellow striped suit with a marine coat draped over his shoulders like a cape, his arms not in its sleeves. Kizaru also wears pure white shoes, gold amber tinted sunglasses, and a dark green shirt with a mauve tie under his yellow suit. There is a tiny black den mushi, transponder snail, on his left wrist, like a wristwatch, underneath the sleeve of his suit. There were some passerbys and witnesses to this strange sight, but none of them could break it to Kizaru that he is using the wrong den mushi for the purpose of making a call. Those small, black ones were used as wiretaps for other conversations on other regular den mushi. That was when they noticed 2 pirates close by, and one of them had a rifle aimed at the Marine Admiral. As much as they wanted to scream for him to stop, they were too scared. That bullet was shot straight across the sky and landed right at the scalp on the left of Kizaru's head, only for it to go right through and land in a wall on the other side. That was the sign of a logia user. Those pirates had dug themselves a grave for foolishly trying to kill a logia user with just weapons. Especially one on the level of a Marine Admiral. Upon seeing what they had done, those 2 tried to flee. Not that it will help them escape from an admiral. Indeed, before they could make a yard away, Kizaru appeared right in front of them. "Pardon me, do you know where my underling has gone? Just how laid back is this guy? And he is still one of the monsters of the Navy?" Those 2 men couldn't believe it and tried to flee again. Sheesh, people around here sure are rude. Well, let's teach them a manner or two. Kizaru raised his leg, which suddenly glowed so bright, it was painful to watch. When the Admiral made a basic kick, a bright beam shot out right between those 2 fleeing men. When they wondered what was, one of the massive mangrove trees suddenly exploded on its base. Kizaru shot an actual laser beam from his foot. That told everyone witnessing this, that hell has gotten the otherwise peaceful Sabaody archipelago. Before the citizens could faint from all this, Kizaru took out a baby den mushi from one of his jacket pockets. "Oh, my underling. That's how you make calls, my mistake. Don't use that with me. You are a Marine Admiral, act like one." The person on the other side caused anyone else who was listening to pass out. What kind of underling will talk down the guy who took a bullet to the head like nothing and brought down a tree the size of a skyscraper? Now listen up. We have gotten a really bad bunch this time and we need to bring them to justice before they could escape to the new world. Get to it. Yeah. Kizaru shrugged off like a pro and vanished in a burst of yellow light that completely covered his entire body. What will happen next will shake this entire archipelago. XXXXX back at Shaki's ripoff bar. "Well, the Marines are here with one of their admirals seeking you and your crew out," Raleigh stated casually, like it was a typical Friday. He also was a large sack on his back with a few oversized paint brushes of various types. Even Luffy was scratching his head on how this was supposed to coat the Grand King's brew with the special resin. Now listen, coating a ship as big as yours will take quite the while. In the years I had been a coating mechanic, the soonest I can ever completely coat an entire ship will take 3 days. Luffy brought his fingers to his chin and thought so hard on it, it was easy to see that on his face. 3 days. The Marines will never rest now that they know we are here. We can't even trust the other pirates to help us out, they will be mostly focused on saving their own as, he wasn't aware that he was mumbling out loud and a slender hand pulled hard on his cheek. "We get you are trying to think of a way to keep us out of the fire, but no cursing if little Isa can hear it. It is bad enough that Chopper has picked it up, we don't need another cutie among us talking an actual sailor. Understand?" Nami had perfected the strict and overbearing mother, big sister routine down. And while most chuckled at the display, Isa pouted for being called little as much as she wished to yell out. It was a fact she couldn't deny. Besides, she didn't want to interrupt Nami at the risk of getting another chew-out session starting back when Luffy found her in that barrel. "Ah, you make me wish to be young again," Raleigh mused, "and in love too." With everyone focused on the captain getting chewed out by one of his lovers, none of them noticed the dash of pink dust on his cheeks. It is unfortunate that a blushing old man is a bit disgusting. No offense to all elders, of course. Sorry to cut your fun short, but I do suggest you find a way to hide until I am done with my work. With that, Raleigh took his leave, casually walking to work even with a battlefield happening all around the archipelago. The Straw Hats, on the other hand, have no idea if they ever will get out of this nightmare waiting to happen. Elsewhere, Admiral Kizaru, I have a report to make. A Marine hurried with a folder filled to the brim with papers over to where the flashy man, pun intended, was waiting to hear. It is confirmed, 9 rookie pirates, most of them are captains, all have bounties over 100 million berries. All of them intend to enter the New World. The Marine stopped to catch his breath after the hurry over and stating the report out loud. Kizaru just scratched his chin without a hint of concern. However, there's one more thing, Admiral. We got a confidential report from Fleet Admiral Sengoku, for you to read only. That same Marine reached in his uniform and took out an envelope that was indeed stamped confidential in all bold caps. Oh, the boss has something for dear old me. How sweet of him. It was getting harder and hard to take him serious as a Marine Admiral, but that Marine officer said nothing while Kizaru simply took the envelope, tearing the seal off with his fingers. Then Kizaru took a seat on the fountain nearby to relax and read the report to himself. Taking a slow look around for anyone that would dare try to read over his shoulder, Kizaru retrieved the papers from inside and started reading the report. Suddenly, the air around him got thick and hard to breathe. His face only twitched, but it was clear that something had bugged him, something big. After a tense moment, Kizaru returned the papers to the envelope and tucked into his own uniform. Standing up tall, turned to the Marine who delivered the reports. Many thanks, my good man. The boss had bad news for me indeed, and you lot will not like to hear it. So, speak nothing of all this. Just tell them to come to me if they insist. Understand? The Marine officer nodded his head swiftly. Rather not question what upset the monster that Kizaru is now proving to be. As for the rest of you, get to your positions. We now have a major headache on our hands, and I hate those. XXXXX back with Luffy's group. I still think I should kill you for getting the Marines to send one of their monsters on us for real. It was hard to tell if it was a joke or a serious threat. The Den Den Mushi didn't even change its expression, yet Luffy was not worried. But we will still watch over the Grand King's brew for anyone who will want to sink her. Let's hope this Raleigh character gets here soon. You just watch on yourself, wherever you are. Thank you, Frankie. Best of luck. The young captain responded, tucking in the little snail back in his vest. Now, he knows that he can count on his crew to do their duty, but with the Marines getting ready to go after the other 9 big shots scattered across the archipelago, there was this bad feeling. Like the one you get when it seems that your enemy is going to pull something under your feet. And yet, Mugiwara, Strawhat, a wild roar was heard that shook the massive trees a bit, just a bit. What the hell are you fucking shitting this over with? You got the fucking Marines to send one of their fucking monsters on us. What the fuck is your fucking problem? For being a pirate, the young man had a good excuse for talking like a sailor. Hello Eustace kid, glad to see that there is a brain in there somewhere. It takes a lot to scare this young captain. If you wanted to talk business, you could have just said so. Now little Isa is going to have nightmares for weeks. Luffy's casual tone was amplified somehow with his crew glaring something terrible at the foul-mouthed Eustace. Not to mention how the little girl was watched over by the women straw hats like mother hens. While the kid pirates were trembling, Eustace and Killer just took a step back, something about a painful memory rather than fear. Now how about we start over? What has gotten you all worked up about? Luffy broke the ice with a friendly tone. There was still the glare of promised pain to any fool speak out in another vulgar curse. However, hold that thought. We have company. As if on cue, something large landed right behind the kid pirates, causing them to either scream or get on the defense. What the? As much as Eustace wanted to curse out in spite of the Straw Hat's warning glare, his breath was taken away from the sight. Whatever landed in their presence had stirred up a lot of smoke, and as it cleared, it looked like Bartholomew Kuma. While everyone was panicking, focused on this being that truly resembles the Shichibuki Kuma, Luffy noticed something else while the massive man was standing up from its landing. Large bold letters that inscribed PX4.